Okay, I call the 2422nd meeting of the Milwaukee City Council to order. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and Comcast Cable Channel 30 in city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card on the table over there and submitting it to staff, or by emailing ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Comments may also be emailed to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show their first and last names for the record. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. For more information, contact the city recorder at 503-786-7502. Servicios de traducción en español está disponible cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Para obtener más información, llama al secretario de la ciudad a 503-786-7502. Translation services are also available in other languages. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City of Milwaukee respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya, etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. And now I have some announcements. The city's annual board and committee recruitment continues through March. Participate in the city's work and get involved in your community by applying to serve on the board or committee. From the Parks and Recreation Board to the Public Safety Advisory Committee, there are many interesting areas, projects, and programs to get involved with through the volunteer boards and committees. Applications will be accepted until April 1st. And since we have some students here, I want to note that this is open to students too. I think anyone 14 and up, is it 14 and up, is welcome to apply for our committees. So please, if you're interested, think about applying for our committees. The information is at there's probably a link there, www.milwaukeeoregon.gov. Milwaukee's own storyteller is back on Sunday, March 23rd at 3:30 p.m. Will Horniak twines poems, songs, history, and myth in honor of the resilient and well-traveled Irish spirit and soul. The event is for audiences 14 and older and will be held at the Letting Library. Enjoy hands-on activities to learn about bats on Thursday, March 27th at 2 p.m. at the Letting Library. All ages are welcome. Our city manager, Emma Sagor, will hold an open door session on Friday, March 28th from 9 to 10 a.m. here at City Hall in the council chambers. Stop by to ask questions, raise concerns, or just learn more about the city. No sign up is necessary. Would you like to grow your own healthy food but have little or no suitable outdoor garden space? You might be surprised to discover how much you can produce in a container kitchen garden. Award-winning writer Maggie Stuckey will be at the Leading Library on Saturday, March 29th at 2 p.m. to demonstrate just how easy it is. Maggie will plant an actual container garden while explaining the principles and answering questions. Everyone in the audience will be entered into a drawing, and one lucky person gets to take the finished garden home. Finally, save the date for a Vietnam War Remembrance event on Saturday, April 5th at 1 p.m. The American Legion Post 180, the Susanna Lee Barlow chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and the city and actually the Vietnamese community of Oregon will be joining us. We'll gather with community members and veterans groups at Scott Park to remember those named on the Vietnam Veterans Monument located in the park. Parking is available at the Leading Library and the public parking lot west of Scott Park, which can be accessed from Main Street across from City Hall. For more information about each of these events and others, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukieoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. I did want to mention one other event this Saturday. I believe it's 9 to noon. There's a Milwaukie Presbyterian Church on Lake Road, just on the edge of downtown, just up from the food cart pod, is having a volunteer event to remove ivy and blackberry from along the lake. And they're looking for people to come help with that event. It's sponsored by the North Clackamas Watersheds Council. And it's also an opportunity for people who want to learn more about the project to remove Kellogg Dam. They will be doing a presentation there for people who are interested in learning more about that. And I think they're anyway, so that's this Saturday. And with that, I will move on to the haiku, which it's fitting that it's tonight's one written by one of the teachers at the high school. So she dedicated it, she named it the Cart Pod. Smoke wafts through damp air, music blows out the blue cart, feasting with community. So we did get some submissions through Miss Fuzon and her class, and we're always looking for more. So if there are any students who want to write more haiku, we read one every, twice a month at these meetings. And so always welcoming more submissions for anybody who wants to write a haiku. They can be funny, they can be serious, they just have to be G-rated. And with that, I will introduce Principal Kellogg to introduce us to the two students of the month, one from February and one for March.
Well, it's lovely to see all of you guys again tonight, and it's a pleasure. I get to bring two students in front of you this evening. And so the first student I want to talk about is Nyana Garcia. She has a 3.2 GPA. She has taken Japanese 1 through 3 at Sabin-Schellenberg. She's taken AP Biology, AP US Government, AP US History, and AP Lit and Comp. Really enjoys tennis. And then also plans to attend University of Portland and study business and accounting. I'm gonna let Nyana in a minute talk a little bit more about her future plans. And our counselor, Freeland Church, wrote that Nyana Garcia is an outstanding student and a compassionate leader who strengthens our community through connection and inclusivity. She creates space for peers from diverse backgrounds and communicate, learn from each other, from one another, and build meaningful relationships. With kindness and authenticity, she uplifts those around her through thoughtful gestures and words of encouragement. Nyana's ability to foster trust and unity has helped cultivate a supportive and a diverse community. And I think that speaks to who you are and kind of what you bring to our community. And it's a pleasure to bring you forth to the council as our outstanding student. So. Do you want to talk a little bit about your future plans?
Of course.
Sorry.
My future plans, as was mentioned before, that I want to attend University of Portland to study business and accounting because of my father's nonprofit organization, Juntos Northwest, who that provides addiction recovery services to Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities in the Multnomah County. And I believe that becoming an accountant and helping him thrive in his business or nonprofit organization could thrive us and push us to a more healthier community with supporting backgrounds that where people do not feel alone or afraid to connect with one another.
That's really impressive. That's really, I mean, you had all the academic impressiveness, but that sort of heart that's behind that kind of life decision. Good for you.
Thank you so much.
And I wanted to ask you about the Japanese. I didn't know they taught Japanese at Schaumburg. I'm like, I'm going to see if I can get into a Japanese class. I took a Japanese class many years ago, and I can say about, 3 sentences in Japanese. But you enjoy it, obviously. You stuck with it for 3 years.
I really do. I want to give credit to Pool Sensei, who is the teacher that taught me. The way she teaches, when I first wanted to join Japanese in freshman year, I was pretty scared of what the big language barrier, if there was something I couldn't understand or overcome. But my teacher, Pool Sensei, she made it really easy for me to understand. And she also, the curricula that she used was very, I would say, inspiring, because the way that she was able to help each student, no matter if they had problems with understanding the concept or certain things that they couldn't pronounce, she would still adjust the way that she taught to make everybody feel learned and included, which is something I really like. I like when people choose inclusivity and provide an option for everybody rather than just one specific source.
Oh, great. Well, I will give other counselors a chance to, and I'm being told we're going to start with Counselor Savinjord today.
Thank you. It's really nice to meet you and learn more about what you've done at the high school and what you're doing in the community. I guess, a question that always comes to mind for me is what sort of advice you would have for other students who see a need in their community, want to do something to make a difference, and, are kind of like struggling with that path. What would you say to them?
Totally. I believe that no matter what, we're still young. There's still lots of things that we need to learn. There's no set path. And that's what I think is the beauty of being a student, is that you get to create your own. As long as you find sources, there's always going to be people, counselors, teachers, principals, that will always provide some sort of way to get you back to the path. Or as long as you have a main goal or an idea that you want to reach, I would say it's never out of reach. And it's totally not impossible as long as you put your mind to it and not be afraid, which it's totally understandable to have that type of fear. But I would think that anything is doable as long as you put your mind to it. And as long as you have that growth mindset, you can do anything.
I've only known you for about 5.5 minutes now, but I really love you. You're amazing, and I'm so grateful that you're part of our community.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, this is awesome because we get to do this a lot. And some of the stuff that's inspiring is, one, to see so many students come out of Milwaukie High School that are going to change the world. And two, to be able to meet them in person and be able to speak with them. So bravo and kudos to the staff at the high school and for the families that raise these young adults who are going to lead our nation. And you couldn't do it fast enough, I'll tell you that much. My question for you is, do you see yourself, first of all, what you do in the nonprofit is incredible. My day job is in mental health, and I can't tell you enough of how much we in Oregon lack so many necessities and resources. So I appreciate that very much, and for your father taking that up. It's definitely not easy. My question is, do you see yourself one day potentially continuing on the nonprofit for your father? And is that your goal, is to take this thing maybe even further than just Multnomah County?
Absolutely. I believe that everywhere there's definitely a need for help, especially a crisis that's happening, with our current generation, that I could tell would be extremely beneficial if we expanded. No matter what things that get in our way, I know that one day that I want to be able to take that initiative to be able to expand our horizons and not just only work with people in these small communities, but people who are in these big communities that might be, less seen or pushed over because they don't believe that, their problem isn't as big enough. I know that's a big reoccurrence, that some people believe that their problem isn't as severe because somebody has it worse, but I believe that these people, everybody who has something that's going on still needs help, which is my father also does mental health services, people who are dealing with certain things going on in the house, anything like that. That's also a very important thing that needs to be taken care of. And I believe that should be expanded towards everyone, everywhere for the future. Sorry.
Well, it sounds like you guys got a leader on your hands. That's awesome. Congratulations to you and to the family and family. You guys did a hell of a job. Thank you.
I do we've got 2 students today, and you can tell whose family is whose based on who has the phones up. It's nice to see so many people coming out in support of these 2 great emerging leaders. I love asking the students who come in front of us policy questions, and I see that you're a tennis player. And this is a very niche problem that we have, but I'd say one of the explosive issues in front of cities right now is pickleball versus tennis. And so my question for you with a policy lens, we have a few parks that have tennis courts in the city of Milwaukie. How do you feel about converting some of them to pickleball courts? Is that something that's worth doing, or is that something that you don't think we should pursue?
I certainly believe that pickleball, people do enjoy it. Although it is more niche, as you had said. So I believe exposure first is definitely more prioritized before we could convert. But I do believe that in the future, that could be totally an option. I'm maybe possibly biased because I do play tennis a lot. I love tennis. My family got me into it. But I do believe that exposure first would be a good step into people to see if we have interest in this community.
I love that, a measured answer. I would love to see you being involved in these community conversations going forward, whatever community you end up in, whether it's up in Portland or whether you keep a foot down here. I think we'll really benefit from your participation. So thanks for all the work you've done.
Thank you.
Diana, I want to apologize for my fellow counselor for bringing up such a volatile issue that divides our community, pickleball versus tennis. So I thought you were completely out of line asking that question. Yeah. But tennis players, they got games, so good on you. You've done great things. And I always think that you can do great things when you have a good supporting cast. And so I was fortunate enough to meet some of your supporting cast here before the meeting started. Would you mind introducing your supporting cast?
What I have with me is my mother.
Raise your hand. Hi, Mom.
Nicole Murphy Garcia. My brother, Jose Luis Garcia. My father, Jose Luis Garcia.
Jose.
My brother, Rico Garcia.
Hey, Rico.
My Uncle Joseph. Uncle Joseph.
Is that your favorite uncle?
Yes. My grandpa, Willie Murphy. My Aunt Jasmine. And my Uncle Dave.
Yeah. Thanks for all you do for helping Diana. I really appreciate it, and I know she does as well. Thanks.
It's nice having this TV right here.
It is. It's better than having to look at my computer screen. Yeah. So the City of Milwaukie is proud to recognize for outstanding student achievement in academics, civic engagement, and extracurricular activities at Milwaukie High School, Nyana Garcia. Let it be known to all that on this 18th day of March, 2025, the City Council of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, recognized this student as an excellent example of the bright future of this community and nation.
And then one thing I was remiss in saying that both the students I'm bringing forward to you today are from Milwaukie Academy of the Arts.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go Ma, yeah. Yeah.
And it just blends. Right? Okay. Oh, yes, please get me off of that. Okay, perfect. Sure, okay. All right, so my second student that I'm bringing from Milwaukie Academy of the Arts is Fern Moore Tong. And I want to start with, I got to know Fern over the last couple of years, and Fern is on my principal's council at school as well. And anytime I'm asking about, hey, I need this or that, Fern's like, I'll help out. Whatever you need. And so one of the pieces to this is that Fern is a very busy student as well. You see the AP classes she took listed here of AP World History, Pre-Calc, Calc, AP US History, AP Lang and Comp, AP Lit and Comp, AP Biology, AP Government. And she is involved in a lot of our community affinity groups as well. She's president of ISA, which is our Indigenous Student Association. She is on the council for JSU, our Jewish Student Union. She's involved in Ascension, which is our Latino affinity group. And then she helped start our speech and debate club this year. And then she's on our principal's council, and she does choir with Bella Voce. All right. And then future plans, mechanical engineering, either going to OSU or PSU. And I'll have you talk more about that in just a minute. I did the quote on Fern. Fern is a dedicated, engaged member of our school community, always bringing a positive energy to those around them. They are personable and kind. They go out of their way to support others, whether through leadership, collaboration, or simply offering a helping hand. Their commitment to creating a welcoming and inclusive environment makes a lasting impact both on students and staff. So, you're welcome. And so what I'd like you to do is talk a little bit about your future plans. Okay. Yep, you have to do.
Oh, cool. Okay. Hi. Future plans. I want to be an engineer so bad. Mechanical engineer is what I plan on doing. Architectural engineering is kind of what I'm invested in with ACE, which is one of my outside curriculars. And I do that every Thursday. And I'm sure if you have ever met anybody who does architecture, construction, or engineering in the Portland area, they can tell you a lot about ACE. And so can I, but I'm not going to do that. But no, I am busy, and my future plans involve me to continue being busy because I don't like being a couch potato. I don't like being still. Oregon State or PSU, really just on money-wise and distance, because don't get me wrong, I love the city, but I do want to get out. So just for now, I'll come back.
Thank you, Fern. It's great to meet you. Have you lived in Milwaukie much of your life?
I really only attend here. I live in Gladstone, but I love Milwaukie. I've grown up in the Portland area for as long as I can remember. But no, I love it here. It's great.
Okay. Well, I have to say, if you want to be an engineer, you can come back to Milwaukie maybe after college, because we have openings from time to time for engineers. So, it'd be awesome to have you come back in that capacity. You had amazing stuff on your resume or list of accomplishments. I see the Ma connection with the choir, of course, but I am most curious about speech and debate since the principal said you sort of started that program. How did you get interested in that, and how did you make it happen?
I love having my voice heard, always, and it needs to be heard. But with speech and debate, we haven't had a team in like 20 years. That's crazy, and I didn't like that. And especially because a lot of my friends were like from other schools, they just have speech and debate on their college application, and also just because they really enjoy it and they're able to debate. And I haven't had a practice in that. This year, because it is our first year back, we've mostly just worked on developing the program and recruiting, which is going great because we have a ton of little freshies that we're just trying to break down. Yeah, get involved. Better vocabulary. But no, it's been pretty nice. I like it as far as it's going.
Yeah. So there's a teacher that's taking on as an faculty advisor?
Yes,
Yeah.
Nathan Chris is our main person. We have a few other teachers coming and going, but he's the main guy.
Yeah, awesome. Well, good for you for motivating that. I actually didn't do speech and debate, and I'm kind of the only person who ever went to law school who didn't do speech and debate. But I wish I had. I think that you learn a lot of great skills that I wish I had learned, in high school. So I think it's great that you got that started. So congratulations. And I'll turn it over to Counselor Stavin-Jordan.
All right. Thank you. It's great to meet you. I am super excited about this because we are a Ma family. And at home tonight is one of those freshies that you've been breaking down. They just decided that they were going to join speech and debate and went, and they were the only one at the meeting and got to spar against you. I think if I'm putting all the pieces together, it was you. And they had such an amazing time, and came home and was like, okay, I'm going to put together topics. They've been writing their own debate stuff. It's just like knowing that you were that inspirational, and made that much change in one of those freshmen's life, is really special. And I can just tell from meeting you that that there are a lot of others out there. So I just want to say thank you for starting that club.
Thank you for saying that. That was so sweet. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my question is like, what's the next topic that you're going to crush them with?
I mean, we've been talking about spaghetti. The last time we had it was like a debate between pie and cheesecake, so.
All right, okay.
I don't know how inspirational that is, but thank you.
You got to start somewhere.
Well, Fern, thanks for being here, and your resume is nothing short of impressive. I actually did speech and debate too in high school, and it was pretty awesome. My favorite debate topic was the merits of homework. Obviously, I was on the side against homework, but it's a great skill to have. So I'm glad that's impressive that you started. I'm glad you did. I didn't know that the school didn't have that. So you've created and opened doors, as Councillor Stavin-Jordan said, for a lot of other generations really to come. So thanks for doing that. I'm also a PSU grad, so I would prefer you go to PSU. But I get you want to get out of here, but I mean Corval is really, yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. There's a debate topic. And I guess my question for you would be, for mechanical engineering, do you see yourself doing like working with governments or doing it more on like your own and starting your own engineering firm?
The best part about mechanical engineering is it is vague. Love it. Oh my God. I have so much to work with. But yes, civil engineering, being a part of just like building streets, I just want to have a product to be real. And have somebody say like, oh, that's really cool. And I can say, yeah, I did that. But as long as it's a useful thing, I'm happy.
Well, thank you for that. You're also one of the inspirations leading our next generation. So thank you.
Fern, I'm so excited to see you here. I know Fern from outside of this exciting Milwaukie Student of the Month. And so I've been counting down the days until Principal Kellogg would bring you or Bella Lay here. And you can say that you beat her, which is really good. So congrats on that. I also, for the record, want to point out, if you look in that photo, and if you look at Fern now, you can see her cat eye is impeccable. Every time I have seen her, it is just on point, very good. The librarian glasses, they're great. I don't know a high schooler with better fashion sense, so killing it, honestly. I have a heavy question. I'll give you an option. I have a heavy question, I have a light question. Do you have a preference?
I'll take both.
Both. I don't know if we have time. I'll start. Robert's kicking me under the table. Heavy question for you, something I've been grappling with since I drove home and listened to a podcast about this. We've seen in Gen Z, like this real split between men and women, where men have become much more like conservative and isolated, and like the plight of the Gen Z man is just something that I can't get my head around. And so is it something that you see in your high school, and are there things that we can do as a society to address this?
That is a heavy topic. I am a bit biased considering I'm a lesbian, but I don't know. It's hard to talk to peers when they think they're so set in their ways, because when you're a teen, you don't know everything, and you gotta accept that because you can't be high and mighty all the time. I've learned that from my mom when she yells at me. You can't be right, and at least often. When you are also so non-negotiable and closed-minded, you're not going to learn. You're going to be just full of ignorance and hate, and that shows. I think if you are willing to just like listen, maybe not have a conversation going towards change and like changing each other's minds, but just sitting down and listening, that's all it takes. Again, I love talking, but I just need somebody to listen. And if one of those Gen Z guys is going to listen, thank God.
I love that. You're going to have such a huge impact on this state, on this world. I'm so excited to see what you do next, and I hope that we stay connected.
Vern, thank you for starting the Speech and Debate Club. We have a couple of intersections here. I have a daughter who was the president, or the captain of our speech and debate team in high school, and she was passionate, she was outgoing, she was opinionated, maybe a bit argumentative, and still is. But you know, in small doses, those are all good things. And so I know what it can do for you. And so I think that that's a great experience. I also have another intersection in that the company that I most recently worked for we had mentors in our company in the ACE program. And that's just a great opportunity, you know, to get hands-on and really see what things are. And sometimes, you know, it can confirm your path that you've sort of laid out for yourself. Sometimes it says, gee, I don't want to do this, which is that's all good things, because you can see the things that line up with you, that don't line up with you, and that kind of thing. So really take advantage of that. And the people who volunteer to be mentors are just all top notch and that kind of thing. I'm sure you're seeing that. You've done great things in school. Is there anyone here in the audience that you'd like to introduce?
My girlfriend Noe is the only one here.
Okay. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Yeah. I know that we're going to see great things out of you. Thanks for coming. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sorry. Thanks to you, Fern, and to you, Principal Kellogg, for once again bringing us a couple of great students. I will read the proclamation. Here we go. The City of Milwaukie is proud to recognize for outstanding student achievement in academics, civic engagement, and extracurricular activities at Milwaukie High School, Fern Moore Tong. Let it be known to all that on this 18th day of March 2025, the City Council of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the county of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, recognized this student as an excellent example of the bright future of this community and nation. So, Okay, folks, you guys are welcome to stay. It is a public meeting, but mostly people leave. Okay, we are going to introduce some of our new businesses, and I don't see Brooke. Did anybody hear from Brooke? Joseph, you didn't hear from Brooke? We were expecting Brooke. Okay. Okay. Well, then we will go. So one that is not on our agenda, but is joining us is Liz Start with her new business. I don't know if Liz and Councilor Stabilization and her crew want to go together, want to go first, want to go.
Oh, no. Take the whole spotlight.
Oh, so, yeah, we use this time just to introduce some new businesses to town. And we thought we were going to have Brooke from Good Measure, and she may still show up. I guess we'll see. But we will start with Liz Start, who is a member of our Equity Steering Committee and active in her neighborhood association. She was chair for several years and now is bringing a new business to downtown Milwaukie. Very exciting.
Well, hello. Oh, turn the mic on.
Oh, yeah, turn your mic on.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Everything just started rolling really quickly. Just to give you some quick background, I started a consulting business that is based in the city of Milwaukie in my basement, and I've been doing that for over 4 years now. And I've always had this little dream in the back of my brain of how much I would love to be in downtown Milwaukie and have my consulting office in the back and a little storefront in the front, and just randomly started looking maybe about 8 months ago for space, and thankfully Councilor Stabilization introduced me to the folks at the historic City Hall property, and so now I will be taking the space that's between Freeman and Keeper Coffee on the second floor, and so it will be 2 businesses housed in one. So Start Consulting Group has been around for over 4 years, but the new business that will be co-located will be Circus, Upcycled Art and Gifts. Thank you. I did not, it's,
Yeah, I was trying to do that, but on this view over here, I don't know where that is. Oh. Over here.
Look at that.
Hello.
Okay, so what does Circus mean? Who came up with this silly name? Is it Circus? What, Cirque? What? It means circular plus sustainability. So that is central to the work. I work in what's called materials management, where we try and keep the items that we no longer need in circulation as long as possible before burying it in the ground or burning it for energy. So really, so that's the idea behind Circus, and I'm obsessed with vintage circus themes as well. So again, we're still very early. We're still waiting on drywall and electrical in the space. But just so you all kind of can see, it's the beautiful reclaimed basketball court from UC Santa Barbara that they put in. But our space will be a little bit unique because you'll be able to see the markings in it. This is our general layout. If you recall, back when you were over at the old City Hall, this will be the space that's by the beautiful arched window. And so when you walk into the left, that where it's like the light blue is where our consulting desks and offices will be, and the rest of the space will be retail space. So we are going to focus on upcycled products. These are things that I've made over the years. So we're going to have anything from housewares like baskets, things like that for your home. They're all upcycled, to things for children, such as these reclaimed sweater little birds that I made, to jewelry and other accessories. So really excited. Hopefully we'll come back in at least a month or two with an opening date, and really excited to see downtown Milwaukee thriving and growing. Thank you.
That's great stuff. And you will be, I mean, you're not making everything that you sell in the store.
No, I will. I need to also run my other business that will pay the bills for this dream project. So I guess I should have mentioned that. I'm going to be, so in the work that I do, I've gotten to meet some amazing artisans that are local, and some folks just generally in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to keep it mainly Oregon-based artists and creators using materials from our state, and then some folks in Washington as well. Really, we are already sending our garbage all over the place. We don't need to be importing garbage, even if it's made into something beautiful from other places. I'm looking this as, an entry point to get folks thinking about how to reuse things, and, really bringing creativity full circle and getting folks to think differently about their items. And then when they go to purchase a gift, that they're able to give a gift that tells a story and that is made by someone local.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. We're really looking forward to it. Anybody? I mean, yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to have you there. And yeah, thank you. And then we have Counselor Stavengard and Jeff Paramchuk to introduce Beeline Records.
B-side.
B-side? Oh, sorry, Beeline. B-side.
Take a beeline, B-side.
Yeah, right?
There's the t-shirts. Yeah.
Nice.
Gosh, it's weird to be on this side of the room. Well, thank you for inviting us. My name is Rebecca Stavengard, or Becca, and this is my husband, Jeff Paramchuk. We decided to have a midlife crisis and open a record store. If you have known me for a little while, I've worked in the public sector for about 25 years, and it was just a time for a shift, a little change. We love music. We have a huge record collection ourselves, and our kiddo is in like 5 bands now. And so it just seemed like the time to really double down on how much we love Milwaukee and the space that we all use to build community. And everything sort of aligned where we were able to sign a lease with the building that used to house Chopsticks, and more recently the daycare. It's been vacant for a little while. It's about 4,200 square feet. And we have spent the last 3 months just getting real up close and personal with those 4,200 square feet. But we're opening up a space where there's a record store as kind of a central component of the location. It'll be flanked on both sides by a vintage marketplace. So you have curated selections from, probably about 10, almost 12 different vendors. We've tried to really hone in on local Milwaukeeans. We've been able to hire local Milwaukeeans to be a part of our crew. And then in the back, where we were thinking that this would be like kind of a weird place to, have retail space, and we didn't quite know what to do with it. It actually is evolving into a performance space. So we have a really small footprint of a stage, really cozy, kind of 70s vibes. So you still get that vintage influence. And hopefully it'll be a space where we can host events. We have, I think, about a half dozen events scheduled for April. So if the question on your mind is when are we actually opening, it'll be sometime before April 11th, which is our first event. So we have kind of a lineup of, smaller acts, open mic nights, trivia nights. There's some kids performances. So really kind of a variety, and we hope to build that over time. So we brought a few things, and I'll hand it over to Jeff to talk about the records and the things that we'll be carrying and what's in the goodie bag.
Hi, thanks for having us here. As Becca said, we're huge music fans and wanted to share what we do and our love of music with people. So I just kind of brought a little sampling of some of the things that you guys can expect. And more than just like a music store, we're also, we like to have a story that comes with some of the music. We've been able to find some amazing collections countrywide, actually. We picked up an amazing CD collection from a radio station in Chicago. And the music director there was very, very well known and very respected. So we have some amazing music from him. We found collections from literal neighbors who have then referred us to, like they said, oh, my mom was a collector of records, so would you be interested in those? And absolutely. So now we have a collection called Velva's collection, and Velva she collected beautiful music, with her terms. She would play it once and put it on the shelf, and it was untouched. So we've got like literal thousands of records from Velva, and they're just in amazing shape. So we can't wait to share those with people. So yeah, you'll find things like Mr. I'm sure Lisa, Robert, you might appreciate these a little more than Will, maybe. We're kind of running the gamut, trying to collect, everything that people might like. Elvis Costello, classic blues, Starman, if you're a fan of movies from the 80s. Lisa, I see you nodding over there.
I remember Starman.
And then some other like really neat things. This is an album that we found by Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I'm not able to find any information on this particular print of it. I've talked to people in like old collectors groups, and they were shocked that we have this one. But she is amazing and was an inspiration for Chuck Berry. So we're seeing and learning so much about music and how the influence of music is just spreads, and like you can hear some of her things in modern music even, which is just amazing. So it's and we're solidly Gen X, so you're gonna find things like Pearl Jam, and then we have some really great blues stuff that we have as well, like original master recordings of old blues and also many other bands, but just phenomenal pressings that are sure to make people's speakers sing. It's really exciting.
That is exciting. That's a great cross-section of things. Yeah.
So we're hoping that by opening up downtown, we'll also open up a conversation about what music means to people, and not just different artists that they listen to and enjoy, but different generations, and kind of, building that or weaving that conversation between different parts of our community. The whole space that we're set up in is really grounded in values around social justice. So we have our values statement as part of the vendor agreement. The vendors are also part of our community. It's become this really amazing group of people. And I don't know if the slides ever made it through. I tried emailing from my personal email, but I had this slide of the faces of all of the folks that are working with us. And so we have Leanne, who is the vice president of Vibes, and she is responsible for setting up, kind of more of the experience when you are walking into the vintage marketplace. We have Peg, my mom, who is first of all, she's totally amazing, but she has had this lifelong dream of opening up a shop, and she just moved to Milwaukie. She's a resident at Waverly Greens. Waverly Greens is all super excited. They're going to come down in droves. So she has been just like I've never had this experience of being this close and working this closely with my mom, and it's, like, it's ups and downs, but it's just this really incredible opportunity. Dalton and Carolyn are working in the Riff, which is the performance space. So they're going to be putting together the bookings and different bands that hopefully you'll come and listen to. We've got Solomon, who has connections to Milwaukie High School and wrote us this amazing resume and cover letter and mailed it. Like, if you're out there listening and you're applying for a job, print out, especially if you're applying to a Gen X family, getting the resume and cover letter in the mail was really amazing. And he wrote about how his parents met working at a record store. And so it's just been this really great experience to connect with folks. We have P, we've introduced them on our social media page. And so they are supporting some of the administrative and HR work behind the scenes. I don't know, it's going to sound like a Grammy speech if I keep going with all the people who have been involved, but it's just been really incredible, and we can't wait to open the doors for you all.
Well, it's super exciting. So I remembered that you said something, and I saw it also on your Facebook page, that you had some device that uses 8 tracks. And
it's called an 8-track player.
Well, I thought it was like
I'm teasing. We have a karaoke machine.
Karaoke machine, that's it.
That uses 8 tracks.
So my second car, which I bought when I was in high school, well, senior in high school, which tells you how bad my first car was, had an 8-track player, and I didn't buy very many 8-tracks because the 8-track players seemed to eat a lot of them, but I had one 8-track, and I thought I still had it, and I spent a couple of hours digging around because I was going to donate it to you. Unfortunately, I didn't find the 8-track. It's a classic, though. You have to know, like 1979 is the year. It was the big album that year, or a big album that year, which is Supertramp, Breakfast in America.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Anyway, I did find a stack of 45s. I have like some other 45s that were mine. I think this is a mix that were like my mom's and my sister's, because there were some older ones and some that were like, people that were too young for me. Anyway, I went through and I picked a few that I'm giving to you. I don't think they're probably really sellable. They're probably too scratched up and stuff, but they might be something you want to hang around or something. So I'm going to give you a sampling. One of them, this is a trivia question since you guys are so into music. Have you ever heard of the Dartrells?
Sounds familiar, but no, I don't think I've heard of it.
The Dartrells, so there's a record here that is not their most famous record. Their most famous record was called Hot Pastrami, which I do think Zydeco bands play.
Yeah. I have heard
now.
that song.
Like, I've heard it in Zydeco. They were not Zydeco. They were like an R&B band in the early 60s. It's a Dot Records record. There's a Supremes record from 75 without Diana Ross. There's a Sean Cassidy record.
Oh, be still my heart.
Then there's one of the worst records ever made. It is and I this is why I know it's not they cannot possibly be my records. They must be my sister's. It's a song. It's a song called Escape, better known as the Pina Colada song. And then there's a really great record in here, which is Buffalo Springfield, For What It's Worth.
Oh, yeah.
Which is better known as, Hey Children, What's That Sound? Everybody, Look what's going around. So I'm gonna give you these. I hope you can
amazing.
use them in some way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Two things come to mind. So the first is that a lot of people may have records that are kicking around, and we have, thank you, Mayor. We have a partnership with with several Milwaukee businesses, but one of them makes vinyl cleaner. And so we're going to feature that in the shop.
I need that.
And if you really need like a deep clean, we have an ultrasonic cleaner at the shop. And so folks can bring in their collections or a part of their collection, and we'll put them in the wash. And then the other thing that comes to mind for me is just how special and historical, music is in bringing those memories back. There's a gentleman that we've been working with, I don't know, for the last 6 months, and he's been going through his entire collection and downsizing. And I think a lot of people get to the time in their life where they want to have less possessions, or they want to have things kind of they're done with the physical possessions of, and records unfortunately sometimes fall into that category. So this guy, Larry, that we've been working with, he's listening to every single record before he passes it on. And it's because that record and those songs represent a specific moment and memory in his life. And for him, it's part of that process of listening and connecting with that moment in his own personal history, and then letting that go. And so we get to hear stories like that from people when they're coming in, and passing on items, or we're buying vinyl from them. And we really hope that being in our space allows people to connect with those stories too. So you will hear about, Velva's collection, and you will read about, where certain collections came from. And I think for a lot of young people in Milwaukee, who are connecting with music and certain bands, sometimes for the very first time, there's something really special about physical media. So we're making it a point to make sure that we're carrying not only records, CDs, cassette tapes, yes, 8-track, but also the mechanical, devices to play those, right? So like new and used turntables, pieces and parts, and you can get a Walkman. And how many of us had Walkman when we were growing up? But now to be a high schooler and to have a Walkman is it's a totally different experience. And a lot of bands are putting their music out on tapes and on records now. And so there's this resurgence of physical media and listening to music in a way that's more of an experience than just background noise. It's very intentional. And I feel like we need that in our world right now. So we're just, I'm rambling, but clearly you can tell how passionate we feel about this. And we really hope that as soon as we can get those doors open, everybody has the same kind of, emotional connection to the space that we do. And it wouldn't be a Milwaukee business without swag, right? So we brought some stickers for everyone. There's stickers with our original logo, and then we have some variations. So you can have an 80s, disco variation, or punk rock variation, which is on this cool shirt. Also made by local Milwaukee business.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Rob Campbell of Shirt Nerdery. Also made in Milwaukee. And so then that's the regular logo one. Anyway, we're having a lot of fun down there. That's the
Yeah,
that
we
is-
can't wait to have people down there and sharing it with us.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming. And yeah, we're looking forward to it. We
Thanks
will be
for
there.
the 45s.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
absolutely. All right. Is that before? Okay. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community comments on city business, which is not on the agenda. Before we begin, is there any follow-up from the March 4th comments, Ms. Sabor?
There is not, Mayor.
Okay. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit a yellow comment card. I have 2 found on the table in the back of chambers. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand reaction to alert staff that you wish to speak. And when instructed to, click the microphone button to unmute yourself. If you are telephoning in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit a comment via email to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, this is not the time for discussion. The city manager will respond at the next meeting to comments that require follow-up. And so I have Pam Husband and Greg Heemer to start us off.
Thank you for letting us talk to you this evening. I'm Pam Husband, my friend Greg Heemer. We're members of the Linwood Neighborhood Association, which is the group of us on the far east side of the city. The Linwood Neighborhood Association has committed itself to completing a legacy project that will benefit the residents of Milwaukee, especially those who live east of Linwood Avenue. The project is to fund and install a covered picnic shelter with electricity and water inside Fernberg Park. This park conveniently serves families in the Cedar Crest area, and our NDA often stages events in this park. We conducted surveys of different project ideas last year, and the covered picnic shelter was the top choice of residents and members of our NDA.
So the only reason why we are here tonight is to ask the city council just to say that you like the idea. We're not looking for any funding. We're not looking for you to approve it. Just say that you like the idea so that we can move forward and we know that city council won't be a barrier in the future. The other thing we are asking from city staff is to connect us with whoever's job it is at NCPRD to review these kind of things so that we can ask the same question with them and follow up with a few other questions that we may have.
Okay, well, we don't usually discuss things that are brought up to us at, we'd set it for a future meeting or a future discussion, so I think we ought to probably stick with that practice. I have no reason to think you're gonna have any opposition from anyone on the dais. But yeah, we'll have that conversation and Emma can report back.
And we can use the notes as your approval in our longstanding document, or if you want to write a letter of support, we're happy for that as well, whatever choice, if that's the desire that you have.
Do you have, I should say for the record, I've met with Pam and Greg before, late last year, as did the Milwaukie Parks Foundation, some of the people from Milwaukie Parks Foundation. You were working with Adam Moore to get some rough estimate pricing and some detail on what's going to be needed. Do you have that? Do you have kind of a price now?
About 200 grand.
Wow.
Fernberg Park is a lot more challenging than we thought with the water quality resource area that is around there. The utilities that were supposed to be brought to the park are not at the park. So even though they completed the 1997 master plan, they actually did not do what they said they were going to do. But so we have to bring some utilities across the street. The water's across the street by the dock, and the transformer for the utilities, since it's all underground there in that neighborhood, is about a quarter of the way down the road. So we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Good to know.
I might just say, log into the end for council reports. We might discuss this a little bit more then. I have a few things that I was going to talk about there. So We might not talk about it now. You don't have to stay. But at the end of YouTube, there might be a gold nugget.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. Mr. Stoffer, do we have anybody online who wants to speak?
We have no Zoom audience this evening.
No Zoom audience this evening. Okay. And I have Dave Ehrenkrantz. Welcome forward.
I just wanted to thank you for your recent special statement in here. And I wanted to commend you for it and show my support for it. And thank you. That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Okay. I guess that wraps up community comments. And we have the world's shortest consent agenda tonight. We have one item. Tonight's consent agenda includes the minutes of the February 4th City Council regular session. Does any council member wish to remove a consent agenda item?
Can't we for the hell of it?
Nicole and I feel really badly about how often we've had to do this. As of late, we will get caught up. We apologize.
Well, we know you were in a conference and things, so, yeah. Does any council member wish to remove a consent agenda item? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda for the February 4th, 2025 regular session.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. None heard. The consent agenda is approved unanimously. And now I will turn it over to our city manager, who will give us an update on the Clackamas County Stabilization Center project.
Good evening, Mayor, Council President, and councilors. Thank you for having me. I'm joined tonight by Mary Rumbaugh, Director of the Health, Housing, and Human Services Division at Clackamas County. We're going to give a brief update on the Stabilization Center. We only have about 20 minutes on the agenda for this and wanted to just make sure we saved the most time for you to ask questions about the project. So Mary is going to give kind of an overview of what the project is for anyone tuning in, or if you need a little bit of a refresher, I'll talk a little bit about the way the city and county have partnered so far on this project, and then we'll turn it over to you for questions for us.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Thank you, Emma, for offering for a joint presentation. So we've been here in front of you before, and we have a lot of great updates. But to do a little bit of level setting, as a reminder, the Stabilization Center is a sort of a joint project with the Sheriff's Office. So the location is not new to you all. So it's a county-owned facility, actually owned by the Sheriff's Office, located at 9200 Southeast McBride Avenue. As you know, it was previously a community corrections residential program, and it's been sitting empty for quite a while. And the sheriff approached the county a couple of years ago and said, you know, we are seeing a lot of individuals coming into our jail struggling with mental health, and we would really love for them not to be in our jail because that's not actually an appropriate place. So we were able to work together with their identification of that building. Last session, we actually received $4 million from the legislature for the construction of the building, and that has really helped things move along. And then we have committed ongoing funding from one of our, what we call our care coordinated organizations, CCOs, through Care Oregon, which is amazing. So construction is underway. Framing is about ready to happen. We've been working with the construction company and then our two providers. So we did not know our providers last time that we were here, and the council and with support from Emma, we were able to do a partnership with our request for proposal that happened this last year. So we do have, as a reminder, it's a 24/7 program, but there are two complementary sides of the program. The first being what is called a 23-hour stabilization center, and there's a reason for this. It's again open 24/7, but the individual cannot stay more than 23 hours, and the provider is a provider that is well established in a couple of different states. So we actually have an out-of-state provider coming in. They're called Clarvita. They're best known in Idaho, so they actually run 4 adult stabilization centers and 2 youth stabilization centers throughout Idaho, and they've been really a great partner. And then there is a 13-bed, we sort of said shelter here, but it's really a housing case management stabilization for up to 60 days. That is will be ran by a very well-known local organization called the Father's Heart, and everyone's working really nicely together. Just a couple quick other highlights before I hand it over to Emma to talk about sort of our work together. We've talked about this being 24/7. It's really important that the referral source on the 23-hour stabilization side, there are no walk-ups available on for either program. For the 23-hour, it is the priority will be law enforcement drop-off or drop-off through our mobile crisis teams, whether that's the county-based team or the behavioral health clinicians that are part of this, many of the city police departments. Over time, we'd like to address workflow out of emergency rooms, because we also know folks still show up to emergency rooms, but there will not be walk-up ability. Somebody cannot just walk up, knock on our door, and get services. The housing and case management stabilization side of the program, that will either be a referral from Clarvita's program because somebody needs longer than 23 hours, or through our coordinated housing access line. So those individuals won't be in active crisis like somebody coming to the 23-hour. Somebody coming to the 23-hour, it's because we've not been able, generally the mobile crisis teams or the clinicians are not able to stabilize that person in their home or the community. We do that about 90% of the time, and we don't actually need that individual to go to the hospital, but we need something in between. So this is the in-between that will meet a lot of the need in our community.
Thanks, Mary. So the city and the county have been collaborating for about a year now on this project. We appreciate the county kind of reaching out early about this. It is a county facility, but it's located in the city of Milwaukie, and so the coordination between our two agencies is really important. What we've done to date, as Mary mentioned, I served as well as Captain Elkins as part of the RFP review panels for both the stabilization center and the up to 60-day shelter portion. And we'll share that, was really happy with the two providers that ended up being selected in that process, and really appreciated how well run that was. We did a lot of work sort of in the early months, and I know our two council liaisons to this project, Councilor Stavanger and Councilor Massey, were involved in a lot of these coordination calls earlier on. A lot of early conversations about messaging and outreach planning, and a good neighbor agreement. I think one thing that came out of those early calls was the questions that were being raised, and questions that we know Milwaukie community members are going to have, are questions that many of which we sort of knew the answer to, but we really wanted to have the providers on board to provide certainty around those answers, to help, when folks say, well, how will intake and discharge run? We had sort of the general bones, but it really, now that Clarvita's on board and they operate these facilities, we've been reviewing and redlining their exact policies. So we'll just have a lot more robust information to be sharing now that we're into 2025. So what we're doing so far, Mary's been great. There's also some some leadership transition at the county. We're so happy to have Mary in her role. Mary's been great at pulling the group back together. You've got myself, you've got some of it's Jason Wax from our community engagement team, and Chief Ryan Burdick at the table, talking about all sorts of things, all sorts of policies and protocols. With that focus, I think from our perspective, we're pleased to see this service come to our community. We absolutely know it is a need, but we also are watching, what the impact will be on our own services as a city. And so thinking about things like intake and discharge, as Mary said, we know the community will wonder, will there be walk-ups allowed? And so making sure that is coordinated between us two. Transportation and security, these are both things that I know have impacted our police department workloads and capacity just as the behavioral health crises in our communities grow. And so wanting to make sure we think proactively about the protocols around that so that doesn't just fall onto Milwaukie Police to be the default answer. And I feel very confident about the coordination that we've had with Mary's team on that. We will be finalizing the Good Neighbor Agreement now that those providers are on board and we can pin down these protocols, and then restart that communications and outreach so that folks know what's coming, know where to get answers, know the answers to their questions, and know who to contact when they have more answers. So that was our fast and furious overview, but I wanted to make sure if you do have questions that Mary or I can address them.
Well, should we start with our points of contact? Do you guys want to? Yeah. Okay.
So thank you both. I'm excited to hear that the conversations are up and running again. I had the opportunity to look at, both of the programs that would be doing the on-site operation. And of course, I'm already familiar with the Father's House, or Father's Heart, but I guess one of the bigger questions, and Emma, you alluded to this in your last remarks, is around how people get connected back with the community, that they originated from. And that's not, it's not like a, go back to Malala, but I'm aware that this location is going to be a resource for people from all over Clackamas County, and we have a really large county. And so this has been something that that the chief has been talking about, that we've been talking about. There's hardly ever capacity that's built into these programs to provide trauma-informed transportation so that people have the opportunity when they're not in crisis, when they've de-escalated, to be connected to either the next step of care or a caring community that, that they're able to get support from. So what is that looking like? What's your vision for that? How do we make sure that people aren't just dumped, on the street with not, with no other options after they've de-escalated from a trauma?
Yeah, it's been a primary conversation, and I actually, after our last planning session, and just really continuing to gather feedback from really the collective, I think, we're going to go back and sort of relook at, frankly, the budget we gave them for transportation. So certainly we'll use very typical models like many of these folks, if they're not established with a provider, will likely be referred to the Clackamas County Urgent Mental Health Walk-In Center, which is over on 82nd. We would be able to use non-emergency medical transport if they have insurance to do that. So again, a tool that we'll want to make sure that we're utilizing. Claire Vita in Boise in particular, they're used to sort of contracts with non-emergency medical, but also sometimes it's literally calling Lyft and getting them back to their community. And so we need to continue to massage that. And I think, over time, also trying to understand who, of the city police departments in particular, we know that the sheriff's office will probably be a large recipient of this, which is great. But also we really want to make sure that just because of where the location is, we haven't, I'm always most concerned about the rural parts of our community. I think individuals are suffering and they don't always come to our attention. And so I think we are going to continue to have to massage the relationship around what resources have we put into the program to make sure that there is, I love your terminology, Counselor, the trauma-informed transportation. There's a big reason why we'd much rather have mobile teams transport to the Stabilization Center than law enforcement, because people are still handcuffed in the back of a police car. That is not trauma-informed, and I know our partners in law enforcement would be the first to say that's not the way we want to do that either. So that we are massaging that. I've heard that loud and clear through all of our conversations, that one, if somebody comes from another area of our county to this location, we want them back to their community. That is our value. And we're going to have to continue to talk about the various resources that will be available to make that in a more trauma-informed way.
Yeah, it's great to hear that commitment, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that, your background lends itself to that trauma-informed care. And I think it's just, at every single step of contact that we have with folks, because we're going to see them again then, right? I mean, this is a location where people are at one of the most acute, traumatic, crises that they can experience. And we want to make sure that they're then connected to resources and opportunities and stability, because there will be housed and unhoused neighbors going to this site. So then that brings me to my other thought, which is, and this is, maybe this is a part one and you can respond, via email or something as well. But, there's a lot of conversation about cuts to the SHS funding, supportive housing services measure, which is the funding that a lot of jurisdictions have used to be able to fund programs like this. And it worries me because if there are cuts to that funding stream, then it makes it harder for us to be able to set up that network so that there are multiple points in the continuum of service. If someone needs to go to the day center to get connected or to a medical center to get connected, each little piece of that is funded with SHS funds. So what are the conversations around that now, and how can we be helpful in advocacy for something that works well for an entire recovery system?
So I was just in front of my own board this morning having the same conversation. So I think it's important to note that Clackamas County has been somewhat conservative. And so we will be seeing a $10.4 million reduction. We are able to manage to that reduction without any reduction in our committed SHS funding. We won't now be able to do any new projects. So plenty of things were in the queue. We won't be able to commit to that. We do have, because we were initially conservative, we have some carry forward funds that are going to help sort of fill some of that initial gap. But we are the most solid of the Tri-County when it comes to SHS. Expansion will be the challenge until maybe there is a different approach to it. But as you're aware, Clackamas County has committed to an entire full recovery system, recovery-oriented system of care. We're going to be building a recovery center, a caring place, which is in partnership with Father's Heart as well as the county. So there's already been a lot of investments to create that continuum. We're going to have more services and 2 to 3 to 5 years than we've ever seen in this county. And the goal will be that they will be coordinated.
Okay. Well, I think just a plea to continue to keep us engaged in advocacy. And I think that means also regional advocacy, because as the conversation about these cuts ripples throughout the entire, Tri-County region, I think that there's an interest to adjust the funding formula to be able to respond to more concentrated areas of need. And that means that funding that would previously have been distributed somewhat equal, well, kind of equally. I mean, that's all subjective, but the funding formula that Clackamas County receives its funding through, that's up for discussion. Right. So it also means like not only education for us, it means education for your new board. And since this and other resources adjacent to Milwaukie are so important with these core services, I think it makes sense for us to be activated. Absolutely. Thanks for all the wind.
Thanks, Mary, for coming in.
Yeah, of course.
It's good to hear that we have a provider that comes with a good resume. And I understand that there's some follow-on so that we can get down to, refine sort of the broad description of how things are going to work. When will that happen? I mean, is there a big powwow scheduled? What's going to happen there?
So the sort of larger, what I would call the project team that includes Emma and includes the chief, includes both providers as well as county staff. We are moving to a bi-monthly meeting, and then on the off weeks, each of the providers are also meeting with sort of a smaller project team because the funding is coming from sort of two different pots, and then again we come together. And I do know as part of our last meeting, follow up separately to really begin thinking about re-looking at our communication strategy. Do we want to do postcards? Are we going to do a town hall? So really our communications, your communication folks, my communication folks are also then meeting separately. So the powwow is absolutely happening now.
It's going on?
Yes.
Okay, so every other month, is that what I heard?
Oh, I'm sorry, it will be twice a month.
Twice a month?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
We've had 2 meetings so far since kind of mid-February and already are diving into those policies. So Claire Vita sent over their policies. Chief Burdick took a red pen and, asked questions. I will also mention that Chief Burdick had a great call with the chief of police in Boise to just understand how the partnership with local law enforcement and the center Claire Vita operates there works. And they were very complimentary of Claire Vita and shared a lot of great things that allowed Chief Burdick to look at those policies or protocols in a really informed way. And so it's promising.
Okay. Well, we have an environment here where the community is, by and large supportive of these kind of efforts, but, it requires us to continually to push out the communications and everything like that to maintain that support. And so that's why this is important to us. Yeah.
I can keep it short because Councillor Stavanger had asked my SHS question. But no, I'm glad it was asked. The only thing that I want to say, just to reiterate, I think there's a tension that you see in communities like this where people really struggle with seeing unsheltered homelessness, seeing drug addiction on the streets. And at the same time, it can be a struggle to convince communities like this that this is the place where you have to house a recovery center. These two ideas are kind of in conflict. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited that Milwaukie is able to lead in this front to show that we're a community that can do both. That can address unsheltered homelessness and drug addiction, and that has to happen somewhere. And we're proud to be the community where this can happen, and we can manage this in a thoughtful way. And I'm really appreciative of the work that you're doing, Emma, and you're doing as well as the county level, Mary, to make sure that this program goes off well. Because I think this is a great pilot for other communities to step up as well.
Well, Councilor Stavanger would ask my question as well.
My goodness.
It was about the discharge, because I think that's very important. I do mental health in my day job, and that's something that, I think the biggest issue is being able to connect people when they leave our hospital to the next place and making sure that there's follow through. And then making sure that there isn't a drop off or there isn't like, well, there's nothing else we can do. See you later, because we run into that sometimes with the VA. Dealing with the VA is a problem. They don't always, if you want to send them somewhere, they have to get a VA referral. There's some issues up there right now where they're violating the law currently, but hopefully that gets handled soon. But issues like that where it's like, okay, well, if the other end of the picture, whether it's the insurance or the other facility that they're being referred to, isn't able to take them or isn't able, you know, what happens then, right? Like, what's the contingency for the plan B, I guess? And I know you guys are in talks like that, but that's just the most important part. And I think that's where a lot of the community is concerned too, making sure that people just aren't discharged out into the community without nowhere else to go. And then now this becomes their community, and it exacerbates the issue, doesn't help it. So thank you for bringing that up, and I'm sure you guys will keep us up to date on that. I also just want to commend the work that the county's been doing in with the mental health sphere. There's been a lot of movement with mental health in this county, and it's a stark contrast to like you mentioned, the other counties as well. Not that they may not be doing things, but we're effective. And I feel like it's efficient the way we're taking that approach. And it's almost like we're taking the mistakes that other counties have had and we're kind of learning from that. So it's good because you don't always have that in government. So it's good to see that. So yeah, I just wanted to commend the county for the work they've done in this arena. So thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just also just briefly speak, you know, there's only a couple of stabilization centers across the state, frankly. And I had the opportunity to present with my colleagues at a conference 2 weeks ago. Deschutes County is the most established. There was one in Lane County that no longer really is in existence, and everyone else is somewhere in the build process. Ours is the most unique in the sense that we have the complementary sides of the program. So somebody who is not maybe quite ready to return to their community, but they don't need to be on the 23-hour. They certainly don't need to escalate to a hospital. The fact that we can then move them over to a little bit more stabilization up to 60 days, even Deschutes does not have that. They have a relationship with a respite provider, but they're competing with the rest of the county kind of thing. So I think it's exciting to just see whether this is, did we figure out the right model? The other thing I just wanted to highlight, which I do for other, anytime there's new programs, so we have some, a newish one in Gladstone, newish one in Happy Valley, sometimes there are increased calls to 911, law enforcement. And so I work in partnership with our dispatch center to actually get weekly reports to calls to those addresses, including medical calls at the level they can provide, but mental health calls, domestic violence calls. So that's something I don't have a concern. I don't believe we are going to be inappropriately calling, but that's going to be that's a tool that we can use to monitor, because it may not result in a dispatch, but it would be good to know that, maybe we're having more medical calls than we would want. That tells us that we need to relook at some of our screening criteria to make sure that people are medically not cleared, because we won't really do that, but that it was an appropriate referral to us.
Thank you.
I did have a few questions. So when people finish at their 23 hours and go to the other side, if they do, is that voluntary only?
All of it is voluntary. Thank you, Mary, for bringing that up. That somebody does need to voluntarily agree to both come to the 23-hour side and continue into the stabilization side.
Okay. So it sounds to me like you could get to a point where you have, if you've only got 13 beds in the 60-day side, that you could come to a point where you've got more people who need that than you have beds. I mean, those people are taking longer. So what's the plan then?
We're going to have to be monitoring that. We're not concerned actually on the 23-hour side. Claire Vita's average length of stay is 11 hours. Deschutes' average length of stay is 10. So that's sort of a typical. I think there will be a balance, Mara, between how many folks are referred from the 23-hour side onto the stabilization side versus the other parts of the community that are coming through the coordinated housing access. 13 beds, we still feel like that's about the right number, but I think it's to be seen for sure.
Yeah. Okay. You said something, that one option was also medical transport to 82nd Avenue Clinic. if they have insurance. How many people do you anticipate will have insurance? I mean, what percentage?
Well, because even our houseless individuals, one of the priorities is always to get them connected to Medicaid. We would expect that there is a high percentage of folks who are already covered by medical insurance, whether it's through the Oregon Health Plan or through commercial insurance.
Okay, okay, well, that's good to know. So, okay, I think that's really all of my questions. So I look forward to next steps and seeing the Good Neighbor Agreement and all of that come to fruition. Yeah. Any other questions from anyone? All right, if not.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary, for being
Thank you,
here.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Everybody want to plow ahead or do we need a break?
I need to use the restroom.
Okay, yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break to 8:15 by that clock there. And we will come back.
Drink the milkshake too fast, sorry.
I think so. Yeah, go ahead.
I tuned in too late to your conversation.
All right, we are back on the air after a break, and we have our planning manager, Laura Weigel, and senior planner, Vera Colias, to talk about affordable housing code incentives.
We also have our fearless Joseph Grillo here, Assistant City Manager. Thanks. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see you again. We're here to talk about the affordable housing code incentives. And just as a little reminder, this goes back to the housing production strategy that we adopted. And we're working through doing the strategies that we identified as part of that. And this housing code package is one of those strategies that we are working through. We've got we're looking at evaluating the incentives for affordable housing, such as density bonuses and lots of other things that we've included. And so with that, and we've had a couple of conversations about it already. And so we listened to you and took your thoughts from the last meeting that we have and have tried to incorporate some of those into the thoughts about the code. And we're going to walk you through it.
All right, so we're going to focus the staff report on the questions and the commentary that we received from January 7th when we were here before. But again, this is a code-based approach to address housing supply and affordability in the city. And the goal is to consolidate all of our affordable housing incentives, code-based incentives, into one section of the code. They're sort of scattered a little bit right now, the ones that we have, so we wanted to be able to consolidate them into one section. And some of the variance proposals that we have mirror a little bit sort of the framework of Senate Bill 1537, particularly the idea of being able to package up 10 distinct variances within an application and using an expedited type 2 review for that variance package. Okay. There was quite a bit of discussion about the idea of ownership versus rental incentives for the affordable housing, and that perhaps the incentives there should be greater incentives for home ownership. Completely understand that. It builds family wealth, of course, and we understand that desire to do that. However, the zoning code is a difficult way to regulate tenure, housing tenure, whether it's rental or ownership. We think that that would be a problem over long term to administer that, regulate that, and enforce that. And rather than do it through the zoning code and through standards and design standards or development standards, a better way to do that would be through the programming itself. So through either the financial incentives or the program requirements that we would administer through Joseph's program and office, rather than through the zoning code. It's a difficult thing to do. Happy to have Joseph chime in on that, but we'd rather do that.
I was going to say, do you want questions as we go, or do you want us to hold them? You want them as we go? Okay.
I was going to ask you, I'll wait till you finish this, but then I would love to talk about this.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So we'll go on.
Was there something that Joseph wanted to say on this? Yeah.
No, I'm good now. I will add. I think there's going to be more of a discussion. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess I don't understand. If we're going to have CET or some kind of financial incentives, we can have it there too. But I guess I don't understand why we talk about Sparrow site that we're going to have it be home, that we're looking to do a community land trust. Why couldn't we be doing the same thing here? Saying if you're doing a community land trust and you are committing to 30 or whatever number of years we land on, why couldn't we do the same and do it through deed restriction like we're talking about?
I think we're talking about the same thing, unless I'm misunderstanding. You could get the same if it's affordable, if it's restricted affordable, regardless of ownership or rental, you could get these benefits.
Right, no, but my question was, I think we might want to give more benefits.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe hire another floor.
Right.
Or some other benefit to somebody who does affordable versus to somebody who does.
Yeah.
There's a good example. So in the governor's...
ownership, sorry. They're all affordable. Ownership potential, yeah.
In the governor's housing bill, House Bill 2138, Section 3 is about affordable home ownership opportunities and incentives for that. Mm-hmm. If this bill passes, these are changes that we're going to have to make to our code anyways. And so maybe presumptively, as we're doing this now, we'd want to think about making these changes, but it includes specific home ownership targeted programs, and it looks at a duration of 10 years after the date of certification. So I wonder, in addition to what's in section 3 of this, which we might already be required to under state law, if it passes, if we could also explore, I know one of the criteria is if you have 100% affordable units, you get an extra bump. Maybe we could say 100% affordable units, or there are going to be homeownership options after a 10-year period. Or like, I think that parallel for 100% affordability could also be, you could say 100% affordability or homeownership. And that gets to what you were saying, Mayor Beatty. You get a little bit more if you're doing homeownership.
I think the rub, if I can, is that it's through the code. So I think that the Sparrow example, our teeth to that, our enforcement mechanism is the deed, because we own we're selling the land. We can do that. But if it's something just in code and it comes through planning once, when it's first built and it says it's going to be ownership, we don't really have a mechanism. We're not entering into kind of a deed with that. So then the follow-up on that to make sure that remains an ownership site beyond when we first touch it, or only when we touch it. I think that's the difference here. Is that correct?
It's the administrative burden, right? That's potentially on these. And it's something that we can talk about more, because I think that as usually with multifamily affordable housing projects, there's a property management company or nonprofit that is doing a lot of the management for verifying those that come and go, ongoing. And in some of these cases that we're speaking to, that if it was a home ownership project that wasn't necessarily CLT, wasn't a land trust, then the regulatory body could and would have to be us. And that's going to be a challenge, I think, as just from our sophistication background, it'll be a challenge for us. So maybe not incentivizing that without having some other format or framework would be part of this discussion. Because without treating it just by itself would be, I think that's how developers would actually game it. They would build a home ownership model, and then who would be doing every time a transaction occurred, who would be?
Well, I mean, if it's a community land trust.
Right, it's different.
It's different.
But if it's not, that's
Okay.
I guess that's part of the conversation.
Well, I guess I will tell you, there's been a lot of comments that 10 years is not enough on 2138. So I think,
1,000%
a
agree.
lot of cities have submitted comments on that. So it'll be interesting to see if that stays in or gets extended. There's also the condo bill going through. If the condo bill gets through, that's another kind of ownership potential. Yeah, I guess I get that for it's harder. When it's a community land trust, you've kind of got a clear agency that's administering it, and other forms of ownership, I guess it is harder.
But we can keep talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, truly,
Yeah.
this is the venue to have the conversation. This is where staff is starting on the second iteration of the program from the last conversation. I would also suggest, like, if we wanted to incentivize home ownership more, you could also take what is here when we say, if you're 100% affordable rental project, essentially, you get additional variances or an extension of 10% plus 10%. We could also say if you have a home ownership program, 50% or home ownership at 80%, then we could also extend that same incentive, I guess, to the 50% home ownership program. And so home ownership program at 50%, same incentives as 100% affordable. Yeah, that would be one way to.
Yeah, that's kind of where you were going.
Yeah. Can you help explain? I guess I'm still a little confused. Why is the admin burden different for home ownership versus rental? No one is there. There's a group overseeing the rentals,
Yes.
and so they have a reporting requirement. There's no group.
Exactly. Yes, and normally the projects that we do see that are multifamily are usually nonprofit based, or that are affordable. Like Hillside's a great example. The Walsh Commons is another great example. These are institutions that are nonprofits that do it already. And even if they're not, even if they're like a market rate developer, like Guardian, for example, who did Axle Tree, who's also doing affordable ownership projects, or rental projects, they are constantly having to meet certain needs, primarily because the financing behind it is required from the state or Fed that requires these types of reports to be ongoing. So part of it's we can get released from the administrative burden because the state and Fed are also requiring it, and plus there's a property management entity that's like in the day-to-day doing that.
Yeah. It is never good to do policy on the fly, but I think about one idea is even the sale of a home that's not affordable in perpetuity to a first-time home buyer. Like if you're a first-time home buyer and you can buy your home at an affordable rate, even if 10 years later when you're ready to move, if you sell it at market rate, like you still got into the housing market, and I think there's some benefit there. But I guess what I'm wondering is, and that would remove the admin burden for the city, it's just that first sale. It could, like, when you come back with a proposal, could you come back with creative ideas about how we could get around this homeownership problem on a scale of like least admin burden to most admin burden? But I think this is an area where our council really is interested and we want to see more.
Well, I would throw out the question of why not add all homeownership models being CLT based? I mean, that could be one way to do that. If you want to think about it more, if you want to get more creative and cut things up, we can definitely think about it and see what else other cities are doing, but it will be difficult, I think.
Do we think that there is, do we think that the CLTs are getting tapped out? Are more CLTs forming? Are they having more capacity? I mean, I think every community is kind of having this conversation. And I mean, we were lucky, we have proud ground on the short stack, but, and I guess, I will say like, Habitat, I guess they operate as a CLT, right?
Yep.
So they did comment on the condo bill and stuff. So, I mean, they are looking at that too. Anyway.
Yeah, I would say there's a growing interest in general.
Yeah.
Since
And is there a growing capacity?
Supposedly there is.
Yeah, okay.
Because some of these organizations keep going.
Okay.
So I would assume so. That's anecdotal though.
Okay. Councilor Massey?
Yeah. So the question of least admin to most admin concerns me because I don't want any admin burden, okay? Because the kinds of admin burden that we're talking about is not in the competency, in my view. And so I understand the continuum of risk and burden around like that, but I'd be really concerned about getting into that in any fashion.
Council President?
I would agree with you there. I don't necessarily want us in the business of like taking on a new project like this and a new venture. I think it's the challenge that I have that I'm seeing is like, I think we could restrict it to a CLT model. What I really want to see with our rental and homeownership is not just nonprofits doing this. I want to see for-profit developers building affordable housing. They would not be doing this otherwise. And I want somehow us to rig the game where they have to be, they want to be doing affordable housing. Like our community land trust nonprofits are going to be doing that no matter what. And I think we should absolutely make it easier for them to do this. But I think part of what I'm excited about in this code is the potential for greedy for-profit developers to have to do something good because we change the math for them and we make it to their benefit to actually serve our communities. And so I guess the dream that is kind of what you're implying there, Councilor Massey, is like zero admin burden that encourages for-profit developers to actually build home ownership units at an affordable rate. Maybe that's a white whale, but I think it's something that we're looking for.
Ms. Sager?
Thank you. I think we can take this back and put our thinking caps on, but I think I also want to stress that second bullet that is on this slide, which, and when we come back, we can do, we can look at the administrative burden piece of a code-based solution. But I also think showing you the full suite of other ways we can incentivize homeownership alongside an affordable housing code. So the developer in your scenario, Council President, could both get a zoning benefit from having affordable units and get some other kind of benefit by making those units home ownership. So I think we can come back with what we could do through the code, but I think also showing slightly the bigger picture of what we can do with a suite of tools outside of the code would also help this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Emma. I would also, we're probably going to talk about this a little bit later, and we did talk to a few developers through this, and they will say these are all great incentives. These are all design, having some flexibility and adjustment is fantastic. But really what is the most useful if you really want to see units built is tax exemptions, SDC waivers, and reductions, money, and or grants. Yeah. And yeah, time and also, yeah, expedited permitting processes. Those are by far, I mean, like, and if you were to put a scale of impact, those are like 10 out of 10 impacts. What we're talking about is, they're good, they're like 5s. But really, the incentives that they really need and really want are things that are going to cost us quite a bit.
Okay, well, why don't we put the ownership question to the side so that staff can get through the rest of their presentation. And well, I'm sure we'll loop back to that at some point.
On that cheery note, move on. Okay. There was a lot of discussion about the income limits for the various incentive packages. We had sort of scaled, we had a bunch of different options, this many percentage at this AMI, and that what we also talked about was that the code should not provide us incentives for what is effectively market rate development. So we talked about that, and rather focus on incentives that are true income restricted housing. So, and what we took away was that we really wanted to focus on 80% or below of AMI, that was kind of the target. So what we thought was what we would do is revise the proposal to reflect that discussion and recommend that we focus the incentives solely on 80% or below, would simplify the administration of the program and of the code, targets a clear housing need in Milwaukie, which was demonstrated in the in the Oregon housing needs analysis, and look at that the middle housing, mixed use, and multi-unit residential developments to qualify for this incentive package of variances. You'd have to design and construct the project so that a minimum of 50% of the units are affordable for folks making 80% or below of the AMI, and just leave it at one percentage and one AMI across the board, and keep it, rather than having the 4 or 5 different variations that we had. We also talked about, and again, this was in the previous version, but that if you proposed a 100% affordable development at 80% or below, then we would increase the incentives by 10 percentage points. So we're trying to incentivize the incentives by giving you more if it was a fully 100% affordable project. And I know that we talked, I think there was some discussion about, what the city of Portland has been doing, because they have a lot of staff and a really great, robust program that they have there. And they, for example, they do have some incentives in part of their code for affordable fourplexes and multi-unit development. And they include a provision that 50% of the total number of dwelling units on the site has to be affordable to those earning no more than 60% of the AMI as established by Title 30. So we kind of looked at that and thought about sort of coming back to the simplified 50% at 80% AMI. So curious about the thoughts on that approach. We can discuss now, or we can table it, but this was a way of responding to those various levels there.
Not seeing any geese.
Okay. All right.
I wanted to be respectful and not be the first goose, if it's okay to say one thing. You mentioned in your email, and I don't know if you don't agree here, but my only worry of saying 50% of 80% AMI or below is we'd get a lot of 80% AMI units then. And I do kind of like the tiers where you can do fewer number of units at a lower AMI, if only because that will help create lower AMI units. And so I think absolutely this is a good starting spot, but I do like having that like sweet spot. Maybe you're easier to achieve, but lower AMI, because I think those units are really challenging to build. And I do like seeing an incentive to somehow make it more feasible to do 40% or 30% AMI.
All right.
But I'd be curious, Mayor, your thoughts on those two.
Go ahead.
Just real quick, just because there's a chart.
This one?
Mike. Yeah, I just want to clarify that. Mike. That's what you said. Thank you. I just want to clarify because the chart's a little misleading for our area. These numbers are specific. If you read the fine print for Portland, Vancouver, Hillsborough, our 80% AMI or 100% AMI in Milwaukie, based on the census, for two people is 82,000. For an individual is 48. So just keep that in mind. It's about 12 grand. Our 100% is about 12 grand less than what 80% is on this chart.
Yeah, I mean, that was the point I raised in January and kind of raised in my email is that our 80% of AMI, of area median income, is 100% of Milwaukie, 100% plus of Milwaukie median income. Yeah, I agree. Which is why I think the 80% cap is good, but I mean, I definitely don't want to incentivize things above that. But I mean, I think you make a good point about maybe there's a value to a tier that, lets someone do fewer units, but at a lower AMI. I mean, if Portland's doing 60, I find that interesting. I wonder how much they're seeing built under that. Do we have any sense of that? No? Okay. Yeah.
This gets to some of the discussion that was brought up already about the continued affordability piece. And there was discussion about that, specifically the required time frame, obviously to maintain the income restriction. Historically, 30 years has been the timeline for maintaining affordability, but recently that standard at HUD has increased to at least 60 years, if not 99 years. So the question that we're asking, or that has been asked, is 99 years a deterrent? It's a really long time. So an approach can be to reduce the time frame for home ownership units, for example, to 60 years for home ownership, keep them at 99 for rental. I mean, there are ways that we can pull these levers, but I think we were trying to stay consistent to kind of what has been the best practice for these different developments. But we are certainly open to the discussion for that. But the way we've proposed it for now is the 99 years and left it at that in the code. But we can certainly have that discussion. And this kind of loops back, I think, to that 10-year number that's in that 2138, and that's not very long at all. So I think we would like to see that certainly be longer, but we're happy to discuss that with you folks. How we'd like to see that.
Thoughts on that, folks?
Because I see that you mentioned that to reduce it because of so it doesn't deter them, developers from building it. But has there been issues with that historically or regionally where the 99 years, because isn't that kind
We
of?
haven't had 99 years, right? I don't think,
well, yeah,
I think that's kind of
The
new.
CLTs
Land
are
trust
going,
do 99
yeah, those
years.
99 years. So that's kind of where we're seeing it more and more. With the low income housing tax credits, the light program is commonly used for affordable housing projects. Those are 60 years. And so 30 years is kind of an old antiquated number at this point.
Right.
10 years is, I don't even know why that's a conversation personally. But,
the governor's housing bill.
and if you think about it, especially when you're talking about home ownership, you're talking about generational wealth. 30 years that's a mortgage. That's, if if a family stays in place, that's one generation, and then that unit's off the books. So I think they're thinking about it more as multi-generational.
Is this something you discussed with the developers you talked to?
Yeah.
And what do they,
Well,
they do see 99 as a deterrent?
as a deterrent, no, because that's like what they have to do in order to get money.
Yeah.
Or 60 years, that's what they have to do to get money. So no, it's not a deterrent because it's attached
It's
to
already,
funds.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
If somebody wasn't getting grants, then maybe it's a different conversation.
So is there really a need to reduce it from 99 to 60 then?
I would personally say 60 would be a floor and 99 would be a ceiling. But that's just my opinion. I mean, that's kind of where the profession is right now, I think.
Council President?
Some of this, candidly, seems like we're trying to throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And I do think that, like, if we're trying to solve for home ownership and these other things, just overall with how we're approaching this code package, after we adopt it, like a 2-year follow-up, I really want to see, is it being used? Like, I love having an affordable housing code if it's actually resulting in affordable units. And I want to do 99 units, but if no one, or 99 years, but if no one's doing 99 years, then we haven't written a good affordable housing code, and let's come back and talk. But I think it's a good spot. 99 seems like a great spot to start. I really do think that a follow-up, though, after we implement this code, after a reasonable amount of time, would be really valuable, because I want to make sure that we're kind of trying something new, and I want to see if it works, and just have an understanding as a council that we're fine to tweak it. We don't have to get it perfect.
I just want to say thanks, Council President, for that. That you kind of hit on a greater point, which is this could be a starting point.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it doesn't work, we can amend as needed, which we've done in other code. So just to keep that in mind as we go down this route.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And I frankly, I mean, I think it's kind of a commitment we have under our housing production strategy to revisit anyway.
Yep.
I like the, shorter for home ownership, just any incentive for home ownership potential. So I like the 16, how you have it here personally. Anyone else? You look like you want to say something? No?
No, I just want to get clear direction on this because we've heard from two folks, one saying 99, one saying 60 or 99, 60 for home ownership. So it
I'm
would be
fine
nice
with
to
60 for
know.
home ownership as well.
Okay, so now I have two in agreement.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do 60. I'd rather
Okay.
see it all 99 because they gotta use it to get the money anyways, right? So.
Thank you.
Okay, quick reminder on what we're looking at as far as what all these variances do. And there was a chart included in the packet that had the various zones, what the standards are now, and the incentives as well. So you kind of had a snapshot of what all these things mean for the development standards, setbacks, common area and landscaping, lot area, width, depth, building height, and so on. The building height, just to clarify that applies only to mixed use and multifamily or multi-unit dwellings. So not single family, not plexes and not cottage clusters either for the building height increases. So it would apply in all of the zones that allowed those housing types as well. But we did also want to clarify in the code the maximum building height is not in addition to the bonuses that we already have, because we do have height bonuses in the general mixed use zone in the GMU and in the downtown as well. So if you're using height bonuses already, you don't get more incentive, or at least that's how we've proposed it. That could result in, for example, an 8-story, building downtown if you sort of piled up all of the incentives. And we thought it was reasonable to keep the bonuses that we have in the downtown and not add onto it with this. So maximum density, again, applies to multi-unit and single unit subdivision. So there is no maximum density in middle housing. That's by House Bill 2001. Some of the other variances include there's a prohibition for ground floor residential units in certain sections of the downtown because we were trying to support or promote, retail and restaurants and those sorts of things. So the incentive, and we can certainly clarify the language if it wasn't clear, that the incentive is that you could have ground floor residential in those areas where the code doesn't allow it normally if you're building the affordable project. So that was the purpose of that particular section in the code. Sorry.
In the language at the end of that J clause, it said, must be allowed except for one building face that abuts the street. I mean, does that mean you're thinking about a corner lot? And so one face would be allowed? That didn't make sense to me.
Oh, yeah, let me rewrite that because I was combining what the existing DMU code says and how the building faces work. So I can rewrite that if council is supportive of allowing, if it's an affordable housing project, that it's okay to have ground floor residential in the downtown. Even if those sections of areas of downtown, currently we would not normally have that does that sound like something folks are okay with?
I'm okay
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, okay.
Council President.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I'm okay with that. And frankly, I see our DMU as a special case. Like, we want affordable housing in all parts of Milwaukee, but as our downtown gets more attractive and like a more exciting livable spot, I think it's important to like not have our downtown gentrify and really be trying to provide additional incentives. And so one thing that I would be curious to see what people would say is, I think it's okay if these incentives are additive to other incentives, as long as it's only within the DMU. So
Okay.
I think we've seen people take advantage of other restrictions or other additions already in the DMU. And I don't want our affordable programs to be in conflict with our climate programs and our other programs. So I'd be curious what other people say.
So what were you saying again, sorry?
So,
So would let it go to 8 stories.
That the height, yeah, that an affordable project could get that additional story on top of the bonuses you already get in the downtown. So you get a story if you are a residential building. So one of the height bonuses is that if you're a green building, you get an additional story. So Axle Tree has an additional story because it was built to a green building standard. So those are 2 additional stories above the base maximum. And then I think what Council President is suggesting, that you could get this as an affordable, another story on top of that. So that could be a 7 or an 8 story building if it met the affordability.
Axle Tree would be a good example.
Yeah.
Axle Tree already gets its height bonus and it says, your affordable housing code isn't that interesting to me. I've already gotten a lot of what I'd want. And I would rather them not have that approach. I'd rather I want to see more affordable units downtown. And if this is an incentive that we can really focus on downtown, I think that that's good. I don't think it's appropriate in our NMU or SMU spots. I think that those are more neighborhood spots and that additional density isn't necessarily appropriate there. But in our downtown, I do see that more acceptable. And frankly, I think this is an area where if we don't really focus our affordability work here in downtown, we're going to see an expensive downtown that low-income folks can't live in. And I don't think that's appropriate.
I think we may see that anyway. I don't, since we don't own land downtown other than Coho, I don't, yeah, I think we may see that anyway. I guess I wonder if this might be a place for the kind of tiering you were talking about, though, where we say, okay, if you're building at 80% of AMI, which is really what our market rate apartments are now, you don't get these bonuses. But if you build at 60% of AMI, we'll let you build. We'll give you the additional floor. Our market rate apartments are at 80% of AMI. So that's not moving the affordability. That's adding height without moving the affordability needle. So I wouldn't be supportive of doing that personally. But if we talked about lower AMI, I might be. Others?
If I could, I just wanted to summarize, I just want to make sure I'm hearing, so the height bonus is okay as a regular incentive, but it's the additive bonus on top of what are already bonuses in the downtown, if it were at 60%. I just want to make sure I'm writing that correctly.
Kind of
That's sort of the idea. Okay. Yeah.
So you would have,
Do you want to?
Oh, it's restarting.
it's Bill Gates, I swear to God. So, Mayor, so you're saying that they would get that extra story on top of the incentivized story by lowering their AMI?
Yes.
Oh,
By building for a more affordable unit.
I kind of dig that one.
I think in the spirit of throw stuff against the wall and see if it sticks, if that's something that we want to, I think stepping back 1,000 foot, I want to see people using this code in our downtown. I like the crucial question of, is our downtown going to be affordable? To me, I'm ready to die on this hill that we need to still see affordability in downtown Milwaukee. And so if we want to try 60% AMI and you get that additive extra story, I think that's good, but I think that's the type of thing that let's review in 2 years. If no one's using it, do we see something else? If people are using it, great. We got 60% in downtown Milwaukee.
Counselor Massey?
Yeah, I like your idea about the 60%. It's almost like, do we just re-baseline everything in Milwaukee? You know? And, you know, rather than the baseline being 80%, it just becomes 60%. It almost seems like the economics would lead us to that direction. And maybe so I'm just saying it may be a wider applicability than just this one use case.
So you're saying for the question as framed by staff at the beginning, the 80%, 50% of units and 80% of AMI, you're suggesting we should use 60 there?
Well, I mean, I'm open to other ideas, but what I'm hearing, you know, from the economics reports and everything like that, it just seems like that's the way we need to go. I mean, is that other thoughts? I mean, that's kind of shifting things to a broader perspective, I think.
I have a question about that. I mean, at what point do developers then start to kind of fall off the interest wagon, you know, of like, at what point, I mean, I really am aligned with the argument to try and build at a lower AMI, but I'm also like, I'm also feeling that dissonance within the developer community that these have to be willing parties. And there are other areas to develop in. So I guess that's one piece. And then I also think about to go back to the, how should we call it, the Anderson dilemma about the added height bonus. I think we're seeing such rapid change in the metro area that even though we're under the region's AMI at 80% now, we would be making a step to preserve that affordability, which is putting a flag in the, in the sand. I don't know how long, I don't know what the requirement would be for developers, like how long would these be affordable units if they were developed with a height bonus?
And that would be the 99 years. Yes, if they were rental.
Yeah, so, I mean, 80% of the future AMI of the region still, like, I don't know. I guess I feel like build what we can. And if we have willing developers to come to the table and build at 80%, but those developers just can't pencil it out at 60%, either we try and kick in, some other cobbled together incentive, or we just build affordability and hope that it's enough. I know that's not a very scientific or planner specific answer, but those are just my thoughts that are rattling around right now.
Councilor Khosrowshahi?
I appreciate the comment on the 60%. I feel better at 80%, one, because it may be more of a draw for developers, especially when they find out that 80% is basically 100 in Milwaukee. And I think also when you think about it, our AMI is for 2 income households. So when you take those individuals out, it's even less, right? So I think it again, because the average Milwaukee and the average income earner, the median income earner can't buy a home here, right? Currently with the current home prices, I think you're going to move the needle a lot more at 80% for people than at 60 without having to potentially kill some development. And I think that's where you get more bang for your buck by incentivizing that 60%, because you still hit the needle and then you can add an additional, and then if you get those developers that want to come in and build at 60, then so be it. But like Councilor Stavanger said, if they can't pencil it out, it's not like, okay, we're not going to do the project. You still have an opportunity to make it pencil out and still move the needle quite a bit. So I do like the 80.
So I didn't quite follow your reasoning on a single person median income, like you said, is 50,000 or whatever it is, 48, yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's an argument for a lower AMI. A single person's never going to be.
Right. Well, the reason I say that is because Milwaukee's mostly, with our median income being 82,000, most of our homes or most of our residents are two-income households, right? Which, to me, the chances of them being a family is probably greater, right? Which means they probably most likely may have a kid, or it's a two-income household. There's two people making that house work, and that's the only reason they can make it work is because two. If you divide that 82, those individuals make less than an individual in Milwaukee. 82 and a half is 41. That's less than the average individual making 48.
Sure, because an average is going to be some people who are making 120, one person making over 100, right? I mean, that's how you get to a median, is there's going to be a mix of some people making more, some people making less. So, I mean, it makes sense to me that the single person median is higher than half of the median.
Right.
Yeah,
But I guess it
there's a
comes
lot
down
of
to, do you want
single
to,
person households.
do you take care of two people or one?
I guess I still don't follow the logic of why 80%. I mean, I do follow the logic of will developers walk away? That I follow. But in terms of the goal of housing more people, lower is better.
Right, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that just because the household income is 82,000, it's not like, I guess it's not one person making 82,000, right? So one person making 82,000.
Oh, it could be.
Right, but for the most part in Milwaukee, there's probably less individuals that make 82 than there are two people in the household making 82, right? I mean, you would, logically, I would assume that there's more couples making 82,000 in Milwaukee than there are single individuals making 82,000.
I think this is the household AMI, right? Or, yeah. So household compared to household across their various different locations. So it's like, so that's the entire house, one person or two people. Is that?
Can I?
So that would be an argument to lower the.
No, I get what she's saying on that instance, but what I mean is that when two people trying to bring in an income, right? There's usually behind two people. I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to paint a picture that we're not seeing because we're only looking at the income, right? So, for example, it's me and my wife, and our income, whatever that is, it's actually just me that's making that income because she's a stay-at-home mom, right? So there's factors like that aren't being captured in here that play a huge role in that, because even though there's two of us, we're still super stretched thin, right? So the argument is also for, okay, well, if there's two people struggling, right? And the chances of there being two people, probably most likely there's a family behind that too. It's not just two individuals. They're not going to count my kids because they can't make money. So I guess what I'm saying is if you have a household where there's two people and there's two incomes, the likelihood of them being a family is probably greater than an individual household, right? So I guess my argument is more about the number of people living in the house to make that income. And you're gonna reach more people because typically there's more people living in a household making that amount of money.
I guess I have three things. One, to clarify, I guess, you're saying there will be single people who, like, we don't want to make it only so married couples can move to Milwaukee. There will be single people here, and we don't want to have it rely on their income alone. You don't have to be a teacher who, God knows how many teachers are making 94,000, but you don't have to be the only teacher. Yeah. I guess a question here, Joseph, with these, when you're saying you have a rental unit at 80% AMI, can anyone rent that unit, or do they income test for?
Yeah, that's part of the whole verification process.
So that would be something I also think about. Like, there will be people in our town who make 80% AMI who will struggle to afford housing. There are people at 120% of AMI who are struggling to afford housing in our town. Less than the 30%. But I think having options tiered below 100% is a good policy. Because if we have a lot of 60% AMI, it's not like our housing crisis is solved. There are still people who are middle class who struggle to afford a home. And I guess another thing, as we look at these numbers, something that I think about, a trivia moment, Councilor Crisarati, average sale price of a house in Milwaukee right now,
It's probably like 550.
550, which is over 120%. So I think the challenge that I see here is kind of like what you alluded to in our downtown. Right now, Milwaukee is below, when we say Milwaukee's AMI is below the metro average, it's because we have people who are less wealthy than the metro on average. But the people who are moving into Milwaukee in the direction we're trending is to be more wealthy than the metro on average. So I think I want to make sure that, like, as we trend this way into a more wealthy, affluent community, we don't lose that affordability at 100% and 80%. That right now might seem affluent, but in the future, that's a very near future, we'll be like, oh my God, this is so affordable.
I want to jump in, but I also see Councilor Massey, you got your goose up too.
Yeah, I understand people's concerns about possibly being, priced out of developer interest, but we really don't know. We just don't know whether they would not be interested in that or not. And so it kind of gets back to well, you try it for a couple of years and see how it goes. But, we have a desirable location. We're kind of starting to build a brand, so to speak. I mean, we're going to have Freem down the street. We're going to have B-Side Records down the street. Those are going to be big draws. And so that's kind of one of the reasons I'm leaning toward taking a reach on this to try to provide real, affordable housing. Yeah. Rather than just saying we're having affordable housing because we're agreeing to some arbitrary mark that really doesn't fit our situation.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
I do think you'll get a lot more developer interest if it's 80%. I absolutely think that's pretty standard. And if you wanted to go below, I think that's fine too, across the board. That's what I'm hearing kind of as part of this conversation. And we can see how that works. I wanted to put this, asked Vera to put this up because I think it's helpful as part of our housing production strategy and what it's supposed to be leading to. The Oregon Housing Needs Analysis dropped what our unit count needs to be over the next 20 years. So 2,100 units, which I think we're going to hit. No problem.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have any trouble hitting that.
And you'll hear from Patrick McLeod next month, and he will verify that. But I think what I wanted to point out is the 60% AMI. So that 338 units that we're supposed to get over the next 20 years, we're going to hit that with Hillside. That's already going to be hit. So the need, in my opinion, are these other AMIs. And thankfully, 30%, they're going to try to do as much as they can, but I don't know if how much they're going to be able to do at Hillside. But really the 80%, the 80 to 120%, which is basically market rate, which we've been talking about. So when I look at these numbers, I'll wrap it up now. When I look at these numbers, 80% is actually, that's actually a need here. From what we're forecasting in development. So if that's helpful at all in this conversation, great. If not.
It's the hard thing about this conversation too is thinking about the same things for big multifamily as opposed to middle housing. Like, how do we use this to incentivize more middle housing and not just big multifamily? And I guess in middle housing, I'm inclined to recognize that we maybe need to go. Well, anyway, Council President.
Two things. I think 80% is a good baseline, but I really do, the more we talk about it, the more I see your point. Like, I think a tiered system where you can do less units for 60%. Like, I still want to have developers building 60% AMI, but I think your point of 80% is not something that we're building currently, or at least incentivizing currently. I think that 80% is a sweet spot. Mayor, I kind of like that thread you were throwing out, though. I think if we look at, especially if we think about this in the context of home ownership, the average sale price, or the sale price of 120% AMI home is $100,000 less than the average sale price of a home in Milwaukee. You're still doing something that is more affordable than what's out there. And so I would be curious to see
Well, if you're doing ownership.
if you're doing ownership, which is much harder if it's not middle housing. And so I would be curious to see if people think we have a separate multifamily housing that's at 80% and 120% for middle housing, which will likely be more home ownership potential.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So I'm saying our code right now is set up for 50% of the units at 80% AMI. I'm saying have that be a multifamily category, have a separate category that starts at 120% AMI. It's tiered as well, and it's middle housing. And so the opportunity for home ownership is frankly, we see more home ownership happening in middle housing than we do in multifamily. And I take the point that it's hard to, we're trying all these things to get home ownership to happen in multifamily. It's still really tricky. But if we have more homes at 450,000 in Milwaukie that are for sale, I think that's a win. That's below what is on the market right now. I'm saying what's happening or what's for sale right now when a house goes on the market, it's already more like 100,000 more than we can afford. If we can have it $100,000 less, I think that helps solve some of this just for middle housing. And it can be tiered as well. It can be higher than 50%. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think a separate category for middle housing that goes a little bit higher than 80% AMI is something I'm okay with, because I think we'll see more home ownership that happens in those middle housing developments. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. I will point out that the condo bill, the info with the condo bill said the median condo price in Oregon is about $330,000, so it's under the 100% of AMI.
Hey, I love condos. I'm already sold on the condo bill.
You thought you were coming in here to streamline.
I was just going to say that. I was trying to make this simple, but you know, as I'm hearing the conversation, there's a couple elements that I'm trying to figure out themes as you all are talking. I see there being a theme between just middle housing and the multi-unit kind of development. I'm kind of wondering and looking at you all if not to. Maybe we need to chop those up and deal with those separately almost. And they can have similar incentives, but there seems to be enough difference in what the conversations are happening where they almost need to have their own sections that are related but different. That'd be my.
Well, and to the point that the council president was making about letting it be higher for middle housing, I'd be okay if it's ownership middle housing. I would probably not be okay if it was rental. So, yeah. Councilor Massey?
Yeah, my thought process, I'm not sure if it's a proposal on the 60%, as a sort of broader baseline, I think is, not a hard position on my part. And I kind of intrigued by, the idea of more of a tiered approach. My thoughts on 60 is just a realization of what the situation is here in Milwaukie, okay? And I think when I look at the chart that was below the houses there that Joseph alluded to, is that okay? Well, we're gonna be there with Hillside. I just look at that as okay, great. We get to take credit for it. It's just kind of a quirk, really, that is here. I mean, yeah, we were partners and we contributed and everything like that, but that's a whole much bigger project than just Milwaukie. And so, yeah, we get to take credit for it. And so we can say, well, we don't have to worry about it. Okay. And I'm just saying that if we're really serious about having more affordable housing, then let's just, look at the situation that we're in vis-a-vis the real values in Milwaukie and make some adjustments for that. And it doesn't have to be across the board at 60%, but it kind of has to be in there somewhere,
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I agree. I do think like the 44 houses that we need, or the 800 houses that we need to build at 120% of AMI, they will take care of themselves. There are developers who will build them. I mean, I kind of feel like that about, everything above 80% of AMI, that there will be developed, because that is what we're having built. That is 7 acres. That is Waverly, well, and not Waverly, but it is, well, yeah. I mean, but they're not building at 100% of AMI, they're building at a higher one, but, and interestingly, the Lava Drive ones, they're less expensive, for this 2 bedrooms anyway, than I was looking at those today. Pardon? Confirm? Oh, yeah. Is that where your mom lives? The new one, the brand new ones? No. Oh, okay. But on Lava Drive, up the, yeah. So yeah, I feel like those will take care of themselves, and I'm not really thinking we should incentivize those, but.
The one thing I'll say is these units are 100% AMI for 99 years. And thinking about where Milwaukie will be in 99 years, like I do think it will be valuable to have rent-controlled apartments at 100% AMI 100 years down the road, because I think Milwaukie is going to be 100 years down the road a very different community. And so having, I guess the open-ended thought project is, I think you're right, we need to have way more incentives down at the bottom end of the spectrum, but I still want people to, let's imagine you're a 2-teacher household. Or let's imagine you're a single person, you're a teacher, you're in that 80% AMI, you get married, and suddenly you're in that 120% AMI, and you're no longer eligible for your rent-controlled apartment. You have to find new housing in Milwaukie, but you still want to live in Milwaukie. You can't afford market rate, which might be more than 120% of AMI in the future. What do? Do you have to leave Milwaukie? I think having those rent-controlled options at every step along the spectrum is helpful. I'd agree that we don't have to do as much to try and do that rent-controlled work at the 100 and 120%, but I think that 99-year horizon is something that will be more valuable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's entirely speculative, but it makes
AMI is going to change with it, though.
Yeah.
So it's not going to stay at 94,000 at 80%. It's
and there
all
will
gonna go
always
up.
be the Westlands and the Lake Oswego's that drive up the AMI that Milwaukie is not. Even as Milwaukie becomes more desirable, it will not be the price points of those
I guess
kind of communities.
the unknown is, for a while, Milwaukie has been under the median income. And I posture that all the stuff we're doing to make a brand of ourselves, to make ourselves a desirable community, one, is a great thing, but also it might put us above the median at some point. And if that ever happens, I think it is valuable to have rent-controlled units at every step.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to base our decisions on if that ever happens, because one thing that we know is wages have been stagnant for decades, but the market has not been stagnant. And these are things like we have, what's this big one over here? Henley Place, right? Yeah. It's half empty. And that's 80% right now. You can get a 2-bedroom for about $2,500 a month over there, right? But that place is half empty, because that means that people can't afford, if people can't afford it now, the average Milwaukeean, then the average Milwaukeean won't afford it 20 years later, because all that's going to go higher and higher and higher. So we have plenty of 100% and above. And I agree with the mayor that that's what we're building now. That's what both of the governor's housing bills are about market rate housing. Like, none of it is really tailored to anything affordable. She's pumping hundreds and millions of dollars into developers to build more of the same. So I don't think we need any more of that. I think we need to focus on 80% and below, because those are the families and the individuals that are coming here and trying to start their lives and trying to get ahead. If you're sitting at 100 or 120%, there's plenty of options out there for you right now.
Okay, so can we take a straw poll on that question? 80% or below, and not incentivizing anything above 80%?
Is this for multifamily, or is it
Everything.
Both.
Everything.
That's something you should be able to agree on both. That should be across the board, in my opinion.
I'm fine with nothing above 80%.
Okay. I assume you are as well? Okay, okay. All right. Well, we at least decided something. So we're agreeing with where you started us an hour ago.
I do want to state, we got back to this slide because council president asked this, posed an idea of stacking various bonuses in the downtown zone for lower than 80%, because you had already, we thought you'd already agreed on the 80%.
Which I agree, that's good.
So I think just to bring us back to that piece of direction, is that a proposal that we have a straw poll support in exploring? I think, Mayor, you said you were not inclined, or you were inclined to consider.
For 60%.
For 60%. Okay, yep.
Sorry, just in the DMU?
Just in the DMU.
Yeah.
At least that was my.
Yeah, that was my understanding too.
I'm with the mayor and council president's thoughts on that too.
I'm sorry, I feel like this is the turducken of a proposal right now. So what you're saying is just in the DMU,
That's what we're saying.
just 60%, just stacked benefits.
Just for a project that's 60%.
Let's do it.
Can you get
100% of units, 60%
Yes.
AMI.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
100%?
that's what I heard.
I thought it would be the same 50% or the same
Okay.
tiered.
No, the way the code is, the draft code is written, it's 100%.
Oh, that elusive
You only get your
unicorn.
height bonus if you're 100%?
Yep. That's the way it's written right now.
Oh, I would prefer the height bonus
At 50?
at 50 in general, that if you're getting all of these additional bonuses, that you get your height bonus at that point. Sorry, that was my bad reading.
Yo, but it's the stacking the height
I did like
bonuses.
the yo.
It's the stacking the height bonuses. You get it if it's your only.
Um,
I'll watch that.
I heard him say yo.
That's what I heard too.
Okay.
Somebody's gonna remix.
We've definitely been here 5 hours.
Yep.
City Council Christmas card.
So all of these variances are only applicable if you're at 100% affordability? No, only.
Did you read the code?
Vera.
It's changed a few times.
The code. Here's the code right here.
Okay, so the height bonus is an incentive. You get that. What you all have been talking about was if you can add that height bonus on top of the existing bonuses in the downtown. So it basically would be a third height bonus in the DMU at 60%. But that's not 100% affordability. This is the base incentive. This 50% at 80% AMI, which is where we are at the moment. So the idea, again, it's an additional bonus in the DMU if you're at 60% at AMI. But it's not 100% of the units.
It's
what
not?
No.
Oh, I thought it was.
No. What the 100% of the units gives you is an extra 10 percentage points for all of the incentives. That's what that 100% incentive was.
And that,
So
if that was our straw poll, still fine with it.
I think so. Yes. Okay, great. Yeah.
Point of information. How many units would be affordable in that 60% scenario? Like what
50%.
percentage? 50, okay,
50%.
So
all right.
take the 44 unit development that's going at the old Chase Bank site. 22 would have to be 60% AMI or less if they wanted an extra story.
Okay.
To me, it seems like a huge barrier to say 100% and 60. I would rather see it be used. And so 50 and 60 seems good.
We're saying 100% for the ground floor uses. Why would we be more restrictive on that than on the height?
I'm fine to say the ground floor is 50% too. If we're looking for parity. Because I'll return to my point. I want to see this used. I especially want to see this used in our downtown mixed use area where we're seeing large developments, because I want to see 60% AMI development happen in our downtown mixed use area. So I think that those are all good changes.
They will just have the basic, and that's the same. It won't be the 100%. Got it. Thank you.
So I just want to clarify, because from when I heard the mayor speak earlier on the DMU, it was if somebody's building an affordable 80% or below AMI multifamily building, right? And 50% of that building is actually 80% or below, right? Then the additional story that you get would be only if those additional units on that floor were going to be 60%
The whole
AMI.
building.
Oh, the whole building.
50%.
Okay, so it's not
Now
just
what we're talking now is 50% of the whole
Gotcha.
All of this is to help make it pencil out. Like let's imagine the 44 units, it's 4 stories, the Chase Bank site. If they added another story, it would be 55. Then they'd have to have 20 or 50% of 55. So still additive, but it helps it pencil more. Can I throw in one more hot topic? Yeah, roll your eyes. I would love your thoughts here. The density bonus. To me, it does not make sense that I think what people in our town care about most is the Jell-O mold. They don't want to see something that's too high, too wide. If it's affordable, I think it's fine to just remove the density limits inside the Jell-O mold.
We had to remove max density anyway.
Max density does not apply to middle housing.
Yeah, so
We
I would
still
rather.
have density, sorry to interrupt you, for multi-unit residential, and max density still applies to single-unit dwellings, so for subdivisions. So effectively, what we're talking about is for multi-unit or multifamily residential developments, basically. I mean, for the most part is my guess.
And this is.
Yeah, because they're still in the code, so.
They
yeah.
are in the code, but you could take it out of the code.
And if it's
Jell-O
we
mold
already
is the
do this
Jell-O
for
mold.
middle housing, I would give that incentive to affordable housing too. If that helps us have more units that are more affordable. But I'd be curious what other people think. Because I think, going back to it, people will care about what the building looks like.
The massing of
The
building.
inside does not matter that much. And if the inside's more dense and more affordable, it's more affordable. Great.
Some form-based code going on right now. It's great. Is there, looks like we need another vote for that one. Yeah, for Jell-O. Okay, great. All right. There we go.
Okay. Great. And again, and we also have some design standards that we're including in with the thing. Okay, moving on. People want to eat. Okay. We simplified the approval criteria, so we took out the really discretionary ones that had to do with impacts to utilities and infrastructure and so on, and are just focusing the approval criteria on being able to meet the standards that are in the code. Okay. And again, expedited review process, so it's the expedited 100 days for the type 2, and that we would do our very best to prioritize the processing of the type 2 variance package, for all of the incentives. Question.
Can it be sooner than 100 days?
Yep, so it could be. I just want
still a long
to
time.
remind everyone, yes, but it never takes, I shouldn't say that. It rarely takes that long, but that includes any appeals as well, if something were to happen. We do have, so 100 days is the expedited review that's in state statute right now for expedited land use applications. We do have middle housing land divisions are in SB 458 is a 63-day expedited review.
Current law? Or
That's current law, that's
proposal.
right now. The middle housing land division is a super expedited type 2 review that is a 63-day, and that's out of the state statute. So we could apply the 63 days to this if that's, just to stay consistent with timeframes that we already have in our
Yeah.
code. So a 100-day is, we already have that in our code because that's in a different section of state law, but 63 days applies to middle housing land division. So we could do that for this as well.
And I imagine that, I mean, the amount of review it takes is really different for different projects and the amount of staff time it takes. So when you're talking about a, 200 unit building, doing it in 45, I know some of the state statutes are looking at 45-day clocks and stuff like that. I mean, I can imagine that could be pretty hard to do. I mean, your basic triplex, sure, you can do that and turn it around fast, but some of these bigger or more complicated projects, yeah, I could.
Well, and I think what I just want to remind, this isn't me taking 100 days to look at a set of plans. I mean, because there's public review too. So there's public notice and a comment period. And for type 2, it's a minimum of 14 days. So you have to build in a couple of weeks just for all of that stuff too. So it's not just staff reviewing things. There is public notice. And again, there's the appeal period. So there's a 15-day appeal period. Then if someone were to actually file an appeal, that 100 days or 63 days or whatever days it is, has to accommodate the appeals as well. So I know it sounds like a lot of time, but there are a lot of things that have to be crammed into that time frame as well, so.
I would just say I'd probably keep it at 100 days. Because also, in addition to everything that Vera just said, there's also an iterative process when they are having to show that the variance that they're requesting is necessary to meet their project. There's going to be an iterative process between staff, and they're going to have to gather information. If you go too short on this, you're going to spend a lot of staff time and a lot of applicant time talking about extending the clock, as opposed to just giving the 120 days, knowing that a lot of our decisions actually beat the clock. It's the iteration with the applicant that drives, or waiting to have a hearing in front of the planning commission that really pushes our 120-day window. With a type 2, we don't have to deal with that calendar. It's all internal. So that would be my suggestion.
Stick with it for now.
I think everybody's
Return to in 2 years.
well, and the state may force our hand anyway.
In 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a couple of example projects to take a look at. This is the quadplex that's under construction right now on King Road. It's at 5069 King Road, so it's actually part of it's the flag lot that's behind a single family home, and there's actually going to be a triplex in front of that. So this 3-lot development that could have only been 3 houses is now going to be 8, which is kind of cool. But this is the quadplex that's in the way back. And so you can see the drawings above and then the construction picture that I took last week. And using this as an example, I'm not using the whole flag, but just the flag portion of the flag lot, not the pole, but just to give you, this is an 8,000 square foot lot with 4 units on it, attached duplex. The site plan that you see here meets all of our existing setbacks. And if using the incentives, and for this lot or for really a typical lot like this, it's your lot coverage and your setbacks are what are the incentives that people are going to use. So for this, so the yards get smaller. So it's just a way of sort of seeing kind of what the footprint of that building, so the units will get bigger. You still can't have more than 4 units on a lot unless you do a cottage cluster development. So there wouldn't be more units, but they might get bigger. But just as an example of how the yards and the setbacks would get smaller. If someone were to use
tree
those incentives.
canopy.
They'd still have to fit the tree canopy on less yard somehow, because the tree code still applies to the projects. This is the site plan for the short stack cottage cluster development. So this is 15 units. These are ownership units. And I know that Jesse Ledesma was here a few months ago, I think, talking about that.
Can you go back to the other one? Is that are they separate lots? Are they going to be ownership units?
They will be a condominium ownership.
Oh, they will?
Yes,
Okay.
so they have not proposed a middle housing land division, but they will be ownership as far as I know. So,
Okay.
yes.
And the triplex too?
And short stack will be, that's a community land trust ownership units at 80% of AMI, I believe. So 15 units, no parking on the site. There is a fire access area for fire trucks, but there are no parking spaces on the site. And so you can see, hopefully you can see my mouse here maybe. So there's a shared green space here, common courtyard, and a shared green space here, common courtyard. This is the fire access and turnaround, and trash and recycling and bike parking and that sort of thing. And then you have yards in the back of these units here. So they meet all of our development standards for cottage cluster and setbacks and so on. But pretty typical sort of long and skinny 24,000 square foot lot. And so the incentives for a cottage cluster, as the sort of incentives that we have, what's going to get lost is the green space. Effectively, cottages can't be taller than they are already allowed at 25 feet. So the 2 stories. So lot coverage on a cottage cluster right now is already allowed to be 60%. And they're limited in size. Cottages can't be more than 900 square feet footprint. Average floor area across the development can't exceed 1,400 square feet. So cottages are limited in size, and that's by state statute because they're supposed to be small. So the incentives that we have could potentially be used for cottage clusters, but what you're probably going to find is that the green space or that shared common area is what's going to go if someone were to use the incentives. This is the 40th Avenue cottage cluster that's already built. These are rental units. So it's 6 cottages on a 13,000 square foot lot. They elected to provide parking spaces, so they have 6 parking spaces. So that's what you see in the photo to the right. Had they not provided parking, they could likely have built, of course, another cottage on the property. But there isn't a lot of room within a cottage cluster to take advantage of a lot of our incentives because it's a pretty tight site. Our cottage cluster code is pretty tight already. So just as an example of what might get lost is, and again, 40% tree canopy still applies
And I was
to
going to say
cottage
that
cluster. So
project doesn't have much green space.
It
is. I don't know if there's some in the back. I've often wondered that when I've gone by it. There is more in the back. Yeah.
Yeah, but setbacks are 5 feet, around the perimeter. So it's the code is really. It's a tight cottage cluster code when it comes to yard and that kind of thing.
So are you saying we could end up, if we apply this code to cottage clusters, we could end up with some with no green space? I mean, how do we balance?
Well, there's a reduction, but they still have tree code. They still need to meet the tree canopy. So and you still have to plant trees to 40% canopy. So you wouldn't lose all of it. You couldn't because you'd still need to be able to plant trees. So.
Yeah, I've heard several comments about how little green space that one has.
I will say, in seeing this, one, super helpful to visualize. I do think that there's some good synergy that's happening between our goals here. Like I think that this work is super important. We need affordability, and sometimes that might mean we don't have as big of yards in our cottage clusters or individuals. At the same time, I think it's important that we have green space in the city, and like having a parks and green space goal where we think about what that communal space looks like is really important. And I think back to that map that we saw earlier with the TSP, if we want to go really far back, like areas that don't have a 15-minute walk shed to a park, I think is something really important that we think about for the next 2 years, because these developments will come to town. That's great. That means town will be more affordable, but balancing it with green space, especially in parts east of the 224, I think will be important.
And then this is the 1600 Lava Drive, the multifamily building that was just completed. So it's a 3-story building. There are 13 dwelling units between 1 and 4 bedrooms. So they have a few larger units in there as well. They provided 11 parking spaces on the property, and the development area is about 19,000 square feet for that. And so with our development incentives, so again, they didn't need to provide any parking spaces. So, but they elected to. So the footprint would be a little bit larger for setbacks, but they would be able to build an extra story. So this is the building looks like now as built. So from a development incentive standpoint, you could imagine another floor on there, that would be the floor that they could elect if they built it as affordable. But from a space standpoint, again, they could certainly not build any parking and make the building that much bigger, but from a apples to apples comparison, same site plan, slightly smaller yard, still parking, but add an extra floor to it. Is kind of what that would look like with our incentives. And we've sort of talked about this already, but what the developers have said that we talked about, again, incentives are certainly useful. So we're not wasting time here, of course. We are doing something great here, but at the same time, cash money is kind of what folks are looking for. And I think there was some discussion about minimum lot size. And is there a way to incentivize that even more? So our minimum lot size right now is 3,000 square feet for all middle housing except for townhouses. The minimum lot size for townhouses is 1,500 to 2,500 square feet. Sort of that's the threshold there. I think I had 2,500 square feet in the staff report, so that's incorrect. It's a range of 1,500 to 2,500 square feet. So we've increased the reduction in the incentives for minimum lot size to 25%. I think it was 10% before. So if that helps kind of get things going, the minimum lot size for a single family home is 5,000 square feet. And that came right out of our middle housing code that we were really trying to incentivize smaller lots for middle housing. But I think there was some interest in having an even smaller minimum lot size to get things built. So we've proposed that 25% reduction. But in a middle housing land division, there is no minimum lot size. You can draw those lot lines kind of wherever you want. So minimum lot size doesn't apply to a middle housing land division. What does apply are building code, for a lot line. So generally what we've been seeing is at least a 3-foot setback in a middle housing land division, because that has to do with building code for fire separation and wall construction and that kind of thing. But you could draw a lot line right around a structure for a middle housing land division. The Senate Bill 458 doesn't allow us to require setbacks.
So what is a middle housing land division?
So,
I mean, we had adopted our own
so
parcelization code.
So this quadplex could be a middle housing land division. If they drew lot lines, it would kind of look like a townhouse development, but it was built as a quadplex and you just draw lot lines down the middle. And so we can't require street frontage for a middle housing land division. We can't require specific minimum lot sizes. The only setbacks we can apply and require are the perimeter for the parent lot. So the outside setbacks, but the interior lot lines, or kind of what goes around the actual the units themselves, we don't apply minimum lot sizes for those.
And that's available if they're being sold?
Correct.
It's not available if they're being rented?
There is, well, the purpose for a middle housing land division is to be able to transfer the property with the land, right? So it's an alternative to a condominium development.
Right.
So generally, it puts each unit on its own lot. The Senate bill doesn't talk about tenure of if it's a rental or an ownership unit. It just means that you can transfer that unit with the property, but the property itself is still considered a quadplex or a triplex or whatever it is. They are not considered single family homes. They can never have an ADU with them. They can't be further subdivided. It's one dwelling unit on one middle housing lot, and that's it. So.
And if this person did this with the 4, then the Unit D would have the driveway and nobody else would.
They would have to, they would have easements is what they've done. We have, I think we do have a proposal on a flag lot to do a middle housing land division. And so there are just multiple easements along the driveway. They need those for utilities also, because each unit has to have separate utilities for water and sewer. So it ends up being a lot of utilities and a lot of easements on the site, but that's the difference. And I think the idea, this cottage cluster could be a middle housing land division too. It could, and what they could do is, draw lot lines around each cottage and have everything else held in common, with a homeowners association of some kind to help maintain all of the common elements and the easements and so on. But that this way, under this, the regular ownership model, I think that the community land trust is doing, I own my cottage and everything else is held in common or something. But you could also own the land, underneath your cottage if they did a middle housing land division. So it's an alternative to the condominium or the land trust option. And so far, we've completed one middle housing land division now on Olson Street, and we have 2 or 3 more in the pipeline right now. So,
why do not all? What incentive? Why do people go for it, or not go for it? Who are building middle housing?
Yeah, well, they want to be able to sell the units with the land. They don't want to deal with the condominium situation. Some folks don't do it though because it's expensive to run separate utilities, for a small development, and so we try to set people up right out of the gate. If they think they want to do a middle housing land division ever in the future, please do XYZ because it's really hard to come back later. But folks seem to be, they're getting more and more accustomed to the idea that everybody's doing them, obviously. So we have, I think, 2 or 3 more coming now that want to do it that way because the condominium idea is less attractive than having folks being able to buy their property in fee like that. So, yeah. I think we've been asked. Skipping that. Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of where we are with the revised package. It sounds like we have some more clarifications or a couple more changes to make, but I, for one, feel like we're pretty close. So, but happy to hear thoughts.
Can I throw one last grenade? We talked about dividing between multifamily and townhomes and maybe doing different AMI structures with that, but then we just settled on, no, let's do 80% AMI across the board. So at this point, we're back to, it'll be one standard code for all. Okay, that sounds good. Just had to clarify there where we ended.
I guess I'm still not, how do we, I'm still not seeing where, going back to the point we started with, which is the ownership question doesn't fit here. I guess, how are we managing the, there's still the question of who manages and oversees the, whatever you call them, the requirements, the affordability covenants going forward.
Covenants, yeah.
How is it different from rental versus ownership?
We don't review the rental verifications because there's usually a property management company that's doing that.
But what are we going to require of the builder? If the builder is not a normal affordable housing developer, if it's not a known nonprofit or whatever, how are we going to do that?
If it's not a known, and you're getting to a great question. This is part of the reason why when we even started to explore this concept code package, I really wanted, my idea was, just because I know the resources that we have and don't have, is I really want to support and help those nonprofits and those developers that actually do this because they need the most help and they know how to regulate and on the back end because they're required to by statute, by Fed or state. When we open it up to others, that's when I start to get, I don't have a great answer. It's deed restriction and then it would be between the city and that property. That's the thing that makes me uncomfortable because that's something we have to constantly verify every time there's a transition of someone coming in and out of a unit. We are involved way more because we are the enforcement mechanism at that point, not any other government entity. So that's part of the struggle that I'm having with even having this conversation.
In some ways, to call the question for tonight, I kind of am with the mayor. I want to see more with a home ownership. I'd love to see when you come back some creative ideas that somehow solve all of it. And I have so much faith in you to do it. But I think that this is, I guess the reason I call the question is this is the only outstanding question. Other than that, you've written a great code, and I think we all are in agreement at this point.
Is it the only outstanding question?
I guess that's kind
I
of
thought
why
we
I'm
had
asking,
some
are there
other
others?
things they were coming back on.
We'll come back with
think we need to come back.
the stackable bonuses in the DMU if you meet 60%. There's a few other cleanup things, but yeah, and I think we can, when we come back, we can also come back with, we're not gonna come up with a creative idea to solve the homeownership thing, because I think if we had, they would have already got there. But I think what we can show is the more full picture of ways with all the tools in our toolbox, we can try to incentivize homeownership, and maybe a little more information about the complexities of trying to do that through code with staff resources. Is that fair, folks?
Yeah. We're definitely coming back. That's, that's what I got. And hopefully we're a little bit closer. Thanks for the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
I do, my wonderful recorder did prompt me that if the meeting is going to go longer than 10 p.m., we need to motion for that to occur. And the motion should include what we believe the stop time will be.
Do people, I mean, if we're going to dive into legislative, we're probably going to bounce up against 10 p.m. If people want to forego a legislative update, then, if it's just standard council reports, we'd probably be out of here by 10.
I would say legislative landscape is about to change dramatically. On Friday, we have our work session deadline. And frankly, there's nothing that our little city can do to change what's going to be posted or not posted. So I think it's to our benefit to wait. Or we will not be losing that much by waiting until April.
Okay, I'm not seeing any dissension from that. Was there anything in particular you wanted to?
No, except I have this great list of grayed out legislation that we were going to call the in memoriam slides.
Oh.
And just play the sad song, but we're past that. There is one thing.
Yeah.
We do have one bit of quick business that we need council to weigh in on. The C4 alternate, council has not designated the C4 alternate, so that might be a segue to council reports.
Have I mentioned he's a really good city recorder? Because I would have totally forgotten that. Yes, I was poked by the C4 staffer that, yes, we did adopt a C4 liaison, Council President Anderson, but they need an alternate for both the main committee and the Metro subcommittee.
I thought I was the alternate.
Oh, okay.
May I ask a question? For the Metro Subcommittee, when I was in that role, that was the alternate for Councilor Sherman, and that has to be determined by C4. Is that, oh, you mean just not the actual Metro impact?
Sorry, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
The
I'm going to go back to
Metro
that now.
Subcommittee. Mayor, I'm happy, we just may have not noted it correctly, so if.
Well, I was the alternate when Councilor Stavanger was the designee. And then I don't know that we actually discussed it. So would you like to be the alternate?
I'm fine if you would like to be the alternate.
I have a little rabble rousing I want to do there. I'll be the alternate.
Works for us.
Okay.
Great.
I appreciate that you asked that in your best Southern way, but I know what you really want.
Actually, I count on the council president to go to all the meetings, but I get emails from them. So I think they email maybe all the mayors, but I guess you could designate me as the alternate. And then there was something I sent out. What was it? Oh, I sent it to Scott to include in the packet.
The Milwaukie Review.
Oh, the Milwaukie Review. Yeah. That's just, good pull. I don't know if there's anything for us to do about that. I just think we ought to be aware. They it's not like they've been giving very good coverage to Milwaukee anyway, since Raymond was let go. But it's kind of like a death knell. It's the end of an era or whatever. But yeah, I don't know that there's anything in particular to discuss. I don't think we're capable of saving the Milwaukie Review. So
The article was weird. I didn't know what the ask was.
well, they did contact mayors and city managers like a year ago, asking us to buy more ads, basically, advertise all our events and, sort of, they're just trying to sell ads. I think that is basically the ask, not just of us, but of businesses and everybody else too. But, it's a paper that comes out so late that if you actually read the stuff, you've read it online already. So the paper, is not giving anybody much news. And so why would businesses advertise in it, So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But anyway, okay. RIP Milwaukie Review, I guess. Yeah. Other council reports? Looks like Councilor Anderson is.
I promised Greg that I would say something at the end.
Oh, okay.
So I'll do my direct to camera, but I probably won't say much. I think maybe if we do, I'd be curious about doing a letter. But frankly, I think this is a conversation that maybe we could have in our scoping conversation for parks.
Well, I mean, if what they want is, we think it's a good idea, go forth and raise money. I mean, there's no downside to that, really, is there?
I heard it a little bit differently. I heard it as, say this is a good idea so that we know that we have Milwaukee's support in the future, and then went into some specifics about the process of getting approval for these things. I mean, I feel like I would need clarity. Like the concept, yes, totally, I support. But I'd need clarity about the things that would be coming to us as decisions in the future, and what what that timeline looks like before I would say that I absolutely support each and every single one of those decision points. Does that make
well,
sense?
it does sound like we need a bigger discussion then.
And maybe Greg has a sense of what to send out to all of us, or hopefully that gives him some
Well,
clarity there too.
and I don't want to put too much, additional work on Greg and Pam. I think there's a bigger question here that we as staff are grappling with, which is what is the process when the community identifies an amenity improvement idea in a park? What do we do with that? And to be honest, we don't have a documented process. And so I'm meeting Thursday with NCPRD staff to talk a little bit about that, because this is also part of our relationship as the park owner and the park operator and maintainer. So we're getting smarter internally. We're going to propose sort of a process. I think that is what would kind of come to you first. Because I think that will give clarity to Councilor Stavenger's question of just when would you, is this just sounds cool and then you're out of it? Or are there going to be milestones down the road where you need to say yes or no to an amenity in one of our parks? And today I don't have a great answer on that, but in general, we're supportive. As the mayor mentioned, we've had staff engage with Greg and Pam as they flesh out what the proposal is. I think let staff get a little bit further down the road with the process piece, and we can maybe bring this back as part of our parks and green space goal conversation. Because I think this won't be the only example of this kind of a community-led initiative idea, which is great.
I think that sounds like a great approach. Yeah, thank you. Last thing that I want to say, there are some legislative updates. I can share them later. I had a rough day today, and I will say that this discussion on the dais made me so happy, and just a moment of gratitude for you all. This was fun policy work, and we all disagreed in fun ways. We got to a better point at the end, and I think that the community, if you watch, to the no Zoom audience out there, if you watch this, this is government doing really cool things that will make our city better. And I'm really grateful to do it with this team. So
Well, I'm glad that you like, I love these kind of discussions. I do. I'm a policy geek, but, and if you needed a cheer up today, not only this, but the fact that we all wore denim for you.
Yeah, that was it.
The mayor said, yo.
To relate to the Gen Z.
Mayor, Watershed Council's tomorrow, PARB is next week, no reports tonight. But, you know, I did not think that Will would be able to top the big question of pickleball versus tennis. But he did with the gender war.
I should stop listening to Ezra Klein before.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
I just have one.
Oh, okay.
We had a West meeting last Thursday. No, we just voted on what to do with the SDC, whether to lower it, keep it the same, or increase it. There was a motion to keep it the same, failed. And then none of the electeds wanted to put in a motion for another one. So anyway, I tried a motion for the full and going right away.
Wait. You said
raise
it,
Yeah.
lower it, or keep it the same?
Right.
And nobody voted to keep it the same?
No. Well, some people did, but it didn't pass.
Okay,
Like all of the electeds, I think, voted no.
Okay.
But then none of the electeds wanted to throw another idea up because it was like, I guess, a political decision. I did. I said, charge the full damn price. But before we took a vote, there was discussion and we ended up, we voted to increase it, but to phase in the full increase over a 5-year period.
And is the SDC still tiered by size of
Yeah, the SEC
units?
still tiered. We just increased it went from 9,000 to 12,200 and some change.
Wow.
But it's going to phase in because we took into account what's happening at the federal level. And we thought that maybe a big jump like that right away would kind of hurt the development aspect and maybe slow some projects down. So overall, we figured that we'd still hit the full increase, but just have a phased in approach. And it just made me think for us, because we thought about potentially increasing our SDCs and incentivizing that stuff. Maybe we can take a similar approach if people are concerned about the development piece. So
Okay, interesting.
that is it from there.
Anything?
I just would like to know where the all denim council photo is going to be public.
We decided that we're going to frame the one of you guys holding the belt, and we're going to give it to the golden goose, like the employee of the month every month.
Nice.
And just for clarity, it is a public record that can be requested.
Oh, well, I would like to request it and then, and I would like to initiate Operation Canadian Friendly Family Sister City. Because I think we could actually become like, you know, at least pen pals with a Canadian city with an all denim council. I mean, you're speaking to their heartstrings.
You have the Canadian connection.
I'm sure if we need a consultant on that.
I have one more fun fact, and then we got to stop. A friend of ours, or a work friend of my husband's, it lives in the Milwaukie, Wisconsin area and is moving to a suburb of Milwaukee called Oregon, Wisconsin, which I just thought was like, I'm going to send them something, like, and then take a picture by their side. It's just going to be great. So. Oregon.
Be an inception meeting.
All right, we're at 9:58, so somebody better move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. None heard. We are adjourned. 9:58.
Nick of time.
In the nick of time.